Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. She didn't show it. She wasn't the type to be unreasonable, and their relationship was complicated. After the events in Misaki City, she had found herself thinking more and more about Roy. She had even consulted her other self, Shiki, about what to do. But to her surprise, Shiki had fully supported her feelings, even encouraging her to take the initiative and claim Roy before someone else did. This left Shiki baffled. She had expected Shiki to offer advice, not outright push her into action. Weren't they supposed to be the same person? Shouldn't Shiki have been more cautious? But Shiki had simply replied, "Hesitating isn't like you. Make your own decision, Shiki." And then he had vanished. Shiki had thought that by staying close to Roy, she would have more opportunities to fight alongside him and explore her feelings. But now, hearing that he was leaving again, she felt a sense of urgency. The last time he had left, he had been gone for 6 months. This time, he was traveling to another world. How long would he be away? She realized she might actually have feelings for him. If she could continue traveling with him, she might find the right moment to confess. But now he was leaving. What should she do? Wait until he returned? No, what if he came back with a girlfriend? That would be. But how could she bring it up? Shiki glanced at Arcuaid, feeling exasperated. With the blonde around, there was no way she could broach the subject. The mood was completely ruined. After much internal struggle, all she managed to say was a soft, "Take care on your journey." Are you serious? Just go for it. If you keep hesitating, that blonde is going to beat you to it. Do you want to be the bridesmaid at their wedding? Shiki, now able to observe the situation through their shared consciousness thanks to a special spell, was furious at Shiki's indecision and ready to take matters into his own hands. But Shiki simply replied, "Shut up, Shiki." And with that, she silenced him. Fine. Do what you want. Don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. I will. Unaware of Shiki's inner turmoil, Roy handed her the cage containing Ruby and Sapphire. He explained that someone from the clock tower would come to collect them soon and instructed her to hand them over when they arrived. Then, while Shiki was distracted, he gave her a quick hug. Huh? What are you? He gently pressed 2 fingers to her forehead and whispered, "Forgive me, Shiki. Next time." With that, the bracelet activated. In a flash of light, Roy vanished before their eyes, leaving Shiki and Arcuaid behind. Time, Age of Gods, location, Mesopotamia, world shift initiated, chapter 162, 162 Chaos. Interesting, though the pace of growth is slow, there is indeed some enjoyment to be found. In another dimension, not of this world, within the darkness of an infinite realm, a voice suddenly echoed. Like planets not fully formed, everything in this space was in a state of chaotic ambiguity, as described in countless myths and scriptures. The surroundings were nothing but a chaotic fog, with an endless darkness as the backdrop. There was no atmosphere, no solid ground, just an endless abyss. Many figures floated on this dark plane. Finally realized his anomaly, understanding the power to bind fate and the world. Pity, he still doesn't fully grasp the significance. Otherwise, we could leave here with the key. Impatient, are we? Shall we help him then? Help him? Ha. Mithraha, what are you planning? Don't tell me you want to interfere with the plan? You never listen to what Yog-Sothoth says. If your rash actions disrupt the plan, delay our departure, the wrath from countless of us will be more than you can bear. It was merely a suggestion. Essentially, it's about the majority rule. If you all disagree, then forget it. Facing the scrutiny of countless shadows, the figure who made the suggestion quickly backed down. Oh, Mithra backing down, now that's interesting. It seems that he has changed you quite a bit. You too, Deolith. The changes in you are significant. You wouldn't have spoken out over something like this before. What should we call this? In that boy's memory, son dear? After all, we've all gained emotions, so it's natural we're not the same as before. This feeling, while not exactly wonderful, is certainly peculiar, At least more exhilarating than being in our original forms. To the point where I now don't even want to leave the body created by Nyarlathotep. Ha 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 ha. Interesting, very interesting, Shub-Niggurath. We've all obtained different parts, different emotions and experiences from that child. This unprecedented sensation is indeed marvelous. In the dark plane, laughter like thunder boomed. From how many shadows, one couldn't tell. Even you, who loves pranks, must be feeling true emotions for the first time, right Nyarlathotep? Tell us, how do you feel? The conversation shifted, and the collective's gaze fell upon the white-haired girl at the forefront. Feelings? Oh, there. Fantastic. These unprecedented sensations, joy from the heart, anger, sorrow, pain, all manner of emotions truly experienced. Not like the simple simulations or experiences through consumption before, but genuine possession, true feelings and cognition of our own. Compared to the sensations we've gained, any avatar or planet seems meaningless. Likewise, it's not just Mithraha, all our kin here must be struggling to contain their excitement. Desperate to hand everything over to this child, to have him complete our expectations quickly so we can escape this meaningless dream with this body, to truly be free. Nyarlathotep's tone was mad yet carried some rationality. She surveyed the vast darkness and issued a stern warning. But, that cannot be. Such actions are absolutely forbidden. Don't let your new emotions and the wonders they bring make you reckless. Our goal isn't these petty gains but true freedom, unshackling ourselves from all constraints, and with these feelings, to revel in true freedom. Understand? Yog-Sothoth hasn't used his piece yet for this very reason. To eliminate any possibility of interference, it remains in its original form, keeping us sealed here until the right moment arrives. That will be when we truly execute our plan for freedom. Therefore, during this time, I hope all can adhere to the rules, maintain the status quo, and not do anything unnecessary. Wait for the right moment. Facing the shadowy figures in the vast darkness, she sternly warned. Should anyone dare to overstep, alerting that child prematurely and disrupting our plans, they should be well aware of the consequences and the fury they'd face. With those angry words, the chaotic abyss swelled, enveloping those gods Nyarlathotep deemed unreliable. Mithraha, facing the incoming tide, did not resist, allowing it to wrap and restrict his avatar. Because he couldn't guarantee he wouldn't overstep due to these new sensations. And even if he could easily tear through this level of chaos, the others would immediately pin him down and forcibly seal him. Such a thankless task was not for him. None of them were present in their true forms, these were merely avatars crafted by Nyarlathotep's key. These bodies, powerful to planetary life, were fragile like clay in their battles. If one acted recklessly, causing irreparable damage to this avatar, thus losing their ticket to freedom, it would be the greatest loss. To them, sealing meant only a few years or decades of temporary confinement, insignificant compared to their eternal existence, not worth struggling against. However, even in accepting the seal, he had to mock a little. Nyarlathotep, the most chaotic one, now maintaining order? That's the ultimate irony. Ha ha ha, is it? Irony. I feel the same, but for freedom, what's a little irony? We've waited this long, what can't I do now? All our kin are willing to abandon their bodies and most of their power, throwing everything at the feet of the great leader to maintain balance. Even willing to escape in such weakened forms to a place of true freedom to rebuild. If we don't have such resolve now, we're no better than the weak, lower life forms on those planets. Yes. Abandoning our bodies, our followers, and most of our power, remaining in this universe to maintain dreams. We, on the other hand, use the key and the child to escape to true freedom and restore our original scale. If we're willing to pay such a price, what more could we lack? Daolith, watching the chaos envelop him, sighed. I have no complaints about self-sealing, but Nyarlathotep, you're not exempt. Anyone else can stay out, but not you. I don't trust you, so you must also accept my seal. With these words, countless strange, irregular objects immediately covered Nyarlathotep's body. This sudden action by Daolith was unanimously approved by all in the darkness. They immediately layered countless seals upon Nyarlathotep using their respective powers. Really don't trust me, huh? Fine, I have no objections. Rest assured, I'll be sealed with you all, doing nothing. Just watching, unable to interfere with the material world. When the time comes, Shub-Niggurath will release us. How's that? No objections to this arrangement? Agreed. 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 Countless responses echoed through the darkness. Oh? You trust me so much, Nyarlathotep. Aren't you afraid I'll do something sneaky while you're all self-sealed? Ha, you won't, Shub-Niggurath. Remember, you're not in your true form either. With your current abilities, if you tried anything, It wouldn't escape our notice, and if it leads to discontent among our kin, causing the plan to fail, even you wouldn't escape retribution." Her tone was both stern and terrifying. "TSK. That is indeed scary, but you're right, I wouldn't do such a thing. Well, chat time is over. Everyone, let's slumber." With that final voice, silence spread, enveloping the area. Then, the eternal, boundless darkness swept over the entire dimension, plunging the whole space into a deathly silence. Chapter 163, 163 Prologue of Creation. The scene was one of profound depth. As one lifted their gaze, they would realize they were deep within the bowels of the earth. Above, the darkness stretched like an abyss, shattered rocks continuously falling, while the grotesque corpses scattered across the ground blackened and crumbled in the flames. Rows of shadowy pikes stood erected across the land, now shrouded in darkness. But with the passing of the master of this realm, these pikes had lost their luster, their colors fading into obscurity. Blackness, scorched earth, and an ominous crimson tide began to ripple beneath everyone's feet. Why? Why had it come to this? We were supposed to have won, so why? Why did it turn out like this? Amidst the shattered underworld, a red-haired girl clad in a white combat jacket and black trousers was desperately running. From the darkness, countless bizarre humanoid creatures suddenly surged forth, attempting to block her path. "Watch out, senpai." Boom. A dull, thunderous roar echoed as the attacking humanoid creature was sent flying dozens of meters away. A purple-haired girl wielding a massive shield retreated to her side, standing firm like a valiant knight, resolutely guarding the red-haired girl and shielding her from any oncoming enemies, refusing to retreat. "Thank you, Mash. No need to thank me. It's my fault for not holding off all the enemies, which put you in danger. No, it's my own. Fools. How long are you going to stand there chattering? If you don't hurry, even I won't be able to hold out much longer." At the highest point stood Gilgamesh, his arms spread wide as countless golden portals materialized in the void behind him. From these portals, a barrage of weapons rained down. Under the onslaught of his noble phantasm, the approaching humanoid creatures found it nearly impossible to close the distance amidst the storm of blades. He shouted down at the two hesitating below, his voice filled with impatience. "Hurry and stop that fool or things will get much worse." Gilgamesh's stern warning rang out before he turned his focus back to suppressing the horde of monsters below. "Understood, King. Anyway, all we need to do is deal with that traitor, right? Then leave it to me, the goddess of love and beauty, to punish him severely. Come on, Fujimaru Ritsuka, take my hand." The goddess, dressed in the light attire of Ruck, rode her celestial bow across the battlefield, extending her hand to the red-haired girl below and pulling her onto her divine vessel, Mana. With the high mobility of flight, she swiftly navigated the chaotic battlefield, carrying the two girls with her. "Ha ha ha, I do like Ritsuka-chan, but since this is Aniki's task, I won't let you leave so easily." Roar. A spirited girl clad in jaguar print blocked their path. "Jaguar-san? Even you?" Seeing Jaguar Man suddenly standing in their way, Mash was visibly shaken. Why? They had already defeated the strongest enemy, Tiamat, so why had things come to this? "Move aside." Ishtar's mood soured at the sight of this foolish jaguar blocking their path. The victory they had achieved had come at the cost of countless sacrifices. Even Ereshkigal, that fool, had paid such a heavy price. How could they allow these interlopers to trample over their hard-won triumph so easily? "Out of my way, you foreign deity. Open the..." Now, no need to get so worked up, Ishtar-chan. Leave this idiot to me." Before Jaguar Man could finish her boast, a self-proclaimed wrestling enthusiast suddenly emerged from the side, wrapping her arm around Jaguar Man's neck and dragging her dozens of meters away, clearing the path for Ishtar. "Now's our chance, let's go." In midair, the wrestling enthusiast attempted to lock Jaguar Man in a chokehold to end the fight, but the agile jaguar slipped out from under her armpit. "Phew, that was close. I thought I was done for." Jaguar Man cautiously patted her stomach, feigning relief, but quickly returned to her usual playful demeanor. "But come on, Quetzalcoatl, this time I won't hold back." "Oh? You're serious now? In that case, you can just die." "Huh?" Boom. The spirited girl was sent spiraling hundreds of meters into the air before being caught by a yellow figure, who promptly pinned her to the ground with a bizarre joint lock, eliciting a series of agonized wails. "Stop. It hurts. It hurts. I give up, Quetzalcoatl." After just a few exchanges, Jaguar Man, now pinned to the ground, quickly surrendered. At the deepest part of the realm, under Ishtar's escort, the red-haired girl and Mash finally reached their destination, their eyes fixed on the tall figure standing above them. In their hands were traces of black flames, and their icy blue eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as they looked down upon the newcomers. The aura and magical energy radiating from them left no room for mercy. Be careful, senpai. Mash stepped forward, raising her shield to block the wave of searing heat. Why? Why is this happening? The red-haired girl stepped forward, her eyes filled with emotion as she stared up at the figure above. There were so many questions she wanted to ask, but she didn't know where to begin. I'm sorry, Fujimaru Ritsuka. There's no grand reason for what I've done. Perhaps it's simply caprice, or perhaps it's to save the world. There's no need for further words. With that, the figure raised their hand, and the black flames surrounding them shattered, releasing a torrent of white light. An overwhelming surge of magical energy, vast as an ocean, cascaded toward them. Come, Chaldea. Show me your resolve. Fujimaru Ritsuka, and you, Mash, prove to me that you have the courage to move forward. This time, I will not hold back. Chapter 164, 164 Tiger of Fuiuki. The bright blue sky was suddenly pierced by a sharp, shrill sound. Then, a streak of white light broke through the clouds, trailing like a comet across the deep blue sky, leaving behind a faint white trace. It crashed directly into a dangerous beast's lair near the tropical rainforest. Boom! With an earth-shaking roar, the white light landed with precision, piercing through the lair from top to bottom. Countless slumbering beasts within the nest were awakened by this sudden, silver comet. As a dim ray of sunlight filtered through the dense canopy overhead, illuminating the ground, it brought light to this secluded, lush forest. The soft yet wet ground, along with the humid air, indicated that it had rained recently, with leaves still coated in droplets covering the ground. Insects and snakes, too numerous to name, often crawled before one's eyes in this rarely trodden tropical rainforest. The environment was harsh, with poisonous insects and biting mosquitoes everywhere, each grotesquely large, the size of a fist. The complex terrain, with its muddy paths, posed a significant challenge. One misstep could lead to sinking into a quagmire. The high concentration of ether in the air served as a constant warning that this was no place for humans to linger. Splash! Stepping on the leaf-covered ground, water splashed up, much to the dismay of someone who prided themselves on cleanliness. The damp air of the jungle was uncomfortable. Growl! 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 Yet, compared to the discomfort of the humidity, the mindless beasts blocking his path were far more irritating. This was a red lion, but clearly not an ordinary one. Its body was huge, far larger than any adult male lion. It possessed a steel-like, massive frame, with ghastly white, sharp fangs protruding from its mouth, and a head so powerful it could crush rocks without question. Beast. Feeling the terrifying magical aura emanating from the lion, Roy recognized it as a fearsome phantasmal species from the Age of Gods. If thrown into the modern world, such a creature would strip ordinary Magus of their will to fight in an instant, only to be torn to shreds by those sharp fangs, serving as a meal for this beast. However, die. With a mere wave of his hand, volume and hydrogen stored in his sleeves emerged, transforming into a sword of silver, soaring through the air. Swoosh! Accompanied by a silver arc flashing through the forest, hot red droplets, like rubies, scattered through the air before falling to the ground. Roar! Before the beast could react, its steel-red body was sliced in two by the silver light. Thud! The beast fell heavily to the ground. Although its robust life force didn't allow it to die immediately even after being bisected, it had lost all capacity to resist, merely struggling on the ground. Roy didn't hesitate, decisively plunging the silver sword into its brain to end its suffering, then turned away. Encounter, response, execution. The sequence of actions was smooth and effortless, dealing with the beast, allowing it to become nourishment for the rainforest. With the matter settled, Roy left without giving the beast's corpse another glance. Since entering this rainforest, such scenarios had repeated themselves more than 10 times, becoming routine. These beasts relentlessly pursued him, and even after killing one, new ones would soon follow. Since landing, he had lost count of how many he'd killed. Initially, he had thought to collect some beast blood for study, but he quickly abandoned the idea as pointless. These were not naturally born beasts but mass-produced, mutated creatures. Their blood was no different from common wild animals, offering little for research. What kind of place is this? Surveying the dense forest, Roy's brow furrowed. He had used the mystic code from Zelrach to use the second magic and arrive at Merlin's coordinates. The transition had been smooth until the last moment when a massive repulsive force sent him flying, crashing like a silver meteor into this dense rainforest, right into a nest of beasts. To protect himself, he released magic in midair, trying to balance himself with burning flames, but couldn't counteract the immense kinetic energy, landing directly in a beast's lair and killing one in the process. The beasts, starved for who knows how long, seeing this fresh meat from the sky, swarmed him. Although these mass-produced beasts weren't particularly strong, their sheer numbers were their advantage. Surrounded by thousands of beasts upon landing, he had to carve a bloody path while escaping towards the exit. With the power of the third magic, his magical energy was comparable to the Holy Grail, unconcerned about being drained by these beasts. However, after slaying over 1,000, Roy sensed a colossal magical energy rapidly approaching from the west. This energy was immense and abnormal. His intuition warned him of a formidable enemy. Facing such an opponent head-on would be troublesome, especially so soon after arriving here and amidst a horde of beasts. Thus, Roy chose to disengage, shifting from clearing beasts to breaking out, quickly exiting the lair and concealing his magical energy as he delved deeper into the forest, successfully evading the incoming figure. Seeing the radiant halo above and the countless mass-produced beasts, Roy confirmed, despite the targeting error, that he was at the correct destination. This was indeed his first stop in the Age of Gods, Mesopotamia, and also the seventh singularity, Ruck. No wonder Merlin had gone silent when he needed him. He must have been at the scene of the seventh singularity. Zelrach had mentioned Merlin was waiting for his support, and his adversary here would likely be Tiamat. Unlike the less famous Tsukihime, the memory of the seventh singularity was vivid in his mind. It was the tale of King Gilgamesh, Merlin, and Chaldea fighting against Tiamat, the mother goddess of creation from Sumerian mythology, showcasing the miracle of humanity. This story was grand and memorable, so he remembered its outline well. The one who had just approached him was probably King, who had taken over Enkidu's body. The immense magical energy from the Holy Grail was too conspicuous. He had sensed it while in the beast's lair, which is why he chose to retreat rather than engage. Now, he was glad for his timely escape, avoiding a direct confrontation with King, which would have been troublesome. King, possessing Enkidu's body and creating the Holy Grail with Goetia's power, was far beyond the likes of NRVNQSR Chaos or Meram Solomon in terms of strength. Being a divine creation no less than Gilgamesh, combined with the infinite supply of the Holy Grail, made him one of the strongest in this singularity. While confident in his abilities in modern times against figures like NRVNQSR Chaos, in the true Age of Gods, where the mystery was far richer than in modern times, powerful enemies were numerous, and any carelessness could lead to dire consequences. Especially in Mesopotamia, where divine attention still lingered. Even as a magician, he couldn't afford to be careless. Now wasn't the time for such thoughts. The priority was to determine his position and find the path to Ruck, to rendezvous with Merlin and Chaldea. He also needed to keep his magical energy concealed and himself hidden, knowing King would launch a thorough search for him after his disappearance into the forest. Based on the magic detection, human presence was sensed about 2 kilometers to the south. Following this direction, he would soon reach areas inhabited by humans in this singularity. He would make further plans once he got there. Using simple magic to ward off the surrounding insects, Roy calmly decided his next steps, heading towards the southern city of Who? Before he could advance much further, a yellow figure suddenly dashed past him in the forest. Roy immediately became alert. Ha 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 ha. You plainsfolk dare to venture into my jungle? Truly brave, but without a guide, you won't see tomorrow's sun, meow aha. Who are you? Following the voice, Roy looked up into the canopy, his ice blue mage eyes appearing as he locked onto the rapidly moving yellow figure. The voice in the rainforest also felt familiar to him. You ask who I am? What am I again? Right, the singer of the night in the jungle? The mysterious beautiful woman? Or the notorious tiger of Fuiuki? Actually, none of those. Ha ha ha. My true identity is... Stop fooling around, Taiga. That familiar voice, full of energy and the opening line she often used when he came to tutor her, made Roy recognize the speaker. And he understood. If you can say that, it means you have memories of me, Taiga. He indeed remembered the jaguar man of the seventh singularity, wearing the skin of Taiga Fujimura, the jungle goddess, but he hadn't expected her to remember him. Hey, of course. The tiger of Fuiuki makes her grand entrance. The figure in the canopy suddenly stopped, doing a spinning leap to land gracefully in front of Roy, revealing herself. Long time no see, Roy Nison, didn't expect to bump into you here. After a perfect landing from a somersault, the shadow's true form was revealed, but... What's with this incredibly stupid costume? Roy couldn't help but comment. While the jaguar man's design and personality were amusing in the game, seeing Taiga dressed in such an odd outfit in real life was another matter. Her youthful, energetic face was still visible, but the wide, seemingly tiger-themed cosplay outfit was absurd in this hot, humid jungle, like wearing a fur coat in summer. Arg, even if it's Roy Nison, saying that will make me mad. It's not just Kulku-chan, why do you also like calling me an idiot? Watch out. Black Tiger Heart Strike. I dodge. Clearly, Taiga was just joking, so Roy easily sidestepped her playful attack, even reaching out to tug at the tiger ears on her head. These actually feel like real tiger ears. Ah, don't touch someone else's ears. And I'm a jaguar, not a tiger. Taiga's face flushed as her ears were touched. This costume wasn't just clothing, it was. Taiga glanced back at Roy, who was still touching her ears, but she didn't reveal the truth. Okay, I understand. Seeing Taiga's somewhat annoyed look, Roy let go. So, Roy Nison, how did you get here? Did some mysterious jaguar god possess you and summon you to this singularity too? Taiga was surprised by Roy's presence. I didn't get possessed by a heroic spirit or summoned to Mesopotamia, I came here willingly. You came willingly? Ah, I totally don't get it, but it feels like something amazing, meow. Roy was slightly exasperated. If she didn't understand, why even respond? Taiga opened her mouth, looking confused, but then her eyes lit up with a sudden realization, eagerly asking more questions. But if you can appear in the singularity without being a servant, you must be a master, right? Isn't that right? Correct. Although my servant didn't come with me to this singularity, I indeed have the qualifications to be a master. Oh, a master without a servant, and it's someone I know, what a lucky find, ha ha, meow. Upon hearing Roy's confirmation, Taiga's eyes sparkled with excitement. She quickly moved in front of him, gripping his hands tightly, and said earnestly, Roy Nison, be my master. Eh? Seeing Taiga, who was so excited she was almost in tears, Roy's expression showed a hint of surprise. Chapter 165, 165 A comedic twist. What defines a comedic character? It's someone whose actions are wildly unpredictable, constantly defying expectations and often leading to outcomes that, while surprising, feel oddly inevitable. The figure currently rolling on the ground in a fit of dramatics is the perfect embodiment of such a character. Despite being fused with the saint graph of a goddess, Taiga Fujimura's eccentric personality has completely taken over, allowing her to drag the divine entity within her into the dirt as she flails about without a care. Image. Roy muttered, clutching his head as he stared down at Taiga, who was clinging to his leg, wailing and complaining. Taiga, have some dignity. If your grandfather sees you like this, he'll have a stroke. Huh? Grandfather? At the mention of her grandfather, Taiga froze, her mind conjuring up the image of his furious face. If he found out about this, she'd definitely be grounded. Just as the thought crossed her mind, Roy pulled out his phone and snapped a few pictures of her sprawled on the ground. Though there was no signal in this ancient era, the camera function worked just fine. He could save the photos and show them to Taiga when they returned to their own time. Wah! Roy Nison, you can't show those to grandfather. If he sees them, my allowance is gone for sure. Taiga tightened her grip on Roy's leg, her tears flowing even more dramatically. You're heading to Rook, right? Let me take you there. I know this jungle like the back of my hand, and I've got plenty of beastmen followers. I can zip you straight to Rook in no time. So please, don't tell grandfather. Alright. I won't tell him. Just get up already. Promise? In an instant, Taiga sprang to her feet. Roy Nison, let's form a contract. That way, I can quit working for Quetzalcoatl and leave this stupid jungle. I can go out and have fun with you. So please, think about it. Roy Nison. Become my master. I'm hardworking, I can fight, I can be your guide, I eat a lot, and I can even warm my what? Enough. Roy rubbed his temples, exasperated as he watched Taiga roll around on the ground. You're all grown up now, but you're still as scatterbrained as ever. If your grandfather finds out, he'll make you copy scriptures again. Wah. Roy Nison, you've changed. You used to be on my side, but now you're using grandfather to threaten me. I won't have it. You're not a lone servant, so you can't understand how I feel, meow. Without a master, I'm stuck here as Quetzalcoatl's overworked employee. The pay's terrible, the benefits are worse, and I can't even go out whenever I want. Taiga's theatrics were in full swing, and they were highly effective. Fine, I give up. Let's form a contract, alright? Roy sighed, extending his hand to the still rolling Taiga. Haha, I knew my incredible skills would win anyone over. In a flash, Taiga leapt to her feet, her earlier tears nowhere to be seen. Using the super speed unique to the goddess, she grabbed Roy's hand, afraid he might change his mind. A red glow flashed on the back of her hand, and the contract was sealed. Yes. I finally have a master. Wahaha. No more slaving away for that stingy boss. Oh, right, Roy Nison, you're heading to Rook, aren't you? After a moment of celebration, Taiga suddenly remembered Roy's destination. Yes, take me there quickly. If we delay any longer, those magical beasts will catch up. Huh? Magical beasts are chasing you? Where? Roy pointed in the direction of the jungle. Following his gesture, Taiga peeked out and scanned the area. What she saw made her eyes widen. A massive horde of beasts was charging through the jungle, their thunderous footsteps shaking the ground. It was a stampede. Holy Roynizen, why are so many magical beasts chasing you? Did you destroy their temple or something? Seeing the dense swarm of creatures, Taiga hoisted Roy onto her shoulders and took off running through the jungle. I don't know. I just fell into a cave at the edge of the jungle and accidentally crushed a large magical beast. Then these guys started chasing me. Oh, you must have killed one of their leaders. That's why they're so persistent. Normally, they wouldn't dare enter the jungle. So, the giant beast I crushed was their leader? Did I bring this upon myself? Roy pondered Taiga's words, a theory forming in his mind. What should we do? Should we take them out here? If we lead them to we'll just be endangering others. Huh? Don't worry about that, Roynizen. Is under Quetzalcoatl's protection. Those beasts won't dare enter. Taiga wasn't concerned about Roy's worries. If she wanted to, she could easily deal with the magical beasts herself. She wouldn't mind showing off in front of Roy, but the powerful magical presence trailing behind the beasts was no ordinary foe. She had a bad feeling about that one. If it came to a fight, she wasn't confident she could protect Roy. Besides, they were all just workers. Why go all out for such meager pay? Let Quetzalcoatl handle the mess. Time to make a quick exit. Hold on tight, Roynizen. I'm speeding up. I am the singer of the jungle night, the goddess of the wilderness, the beautiful and wise beast woman. These four-legged fools can eat my dust, meow aha. With a burst of laughter, Taiga accelerated, darting through the jungle with Roy on her back. The dust kicked up by her speed left the pursuing magical beasts momentarily stunned, their angry roars echoing behind them. But then... clang! 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 Golden chains shot down from the sky, effortlessly piercing through several of the beasts. Earthen spears erupted from the ground, blocking the creature's path. A figure clad in white robes, with long green hair and an androgynous appearance, descended from above. They glanced at the horde of magical beasts with disdain. A bunch of mindless animals, daring to come this far. If they disrupted Mother's plans, they'd pay with their lives. Turning to the beasts, the figure barked, "Leave this jungle at once." The magical beasts let out low growls but didn't dare disobey. They retreated obediently. The green-haired figure then turned their gaze in the direction Taiga had fled. Toward her. A deep sense of caution flickered in their eyes. Compared to the mysterious servant who had just appeared, the ruler of this jungle was far more troublesome. With Mother's revival at a critical stage, it wasn't worth clashing with her over an unknown variable. Though the death of the region's magical beasts was inconvenient, replacements were easy to find. It wouldn't affect the plan. Quetzalcoatl, Humphrey. When Mother awakens, your end will come. After a final glance, the figure led the magical beasts away, disappearing without a trace. What's this? In another city, a golden-haired woman casually tossed aside the corpses of two humans she had just killed. She glanced in the direction of her, a sly smile playing on her lips. It seems King Chan has overstepped his bounds. Time to return and see what's going on. Chapter 166, 166. Or as Jaguar Man had predicted, shortly after venturing into the rainforest, the beasts received a summons from their unseen master. Without hesitation, they turned back, retreating from the jungle without pressing further toward her. Concerned about Taiga's reliability, Roy chose to part ways with her about a kilometer from the city. He freed himself from her grasp, remaining in place for a long while, waiting. Had the beasts truly pursued them, running to would never have been an option. Even with Quetzalcoatl present, Roy could not, in good conscience, bring disaster upon the city's inhabitants. If a battle with King was inevitable, he would face it here rather than allow innocent lives to be drawn into the conflict. He urged Taiga to go ahead to promising to follow shortly. Though bewildered by Roy's reckless decision, Taiga, as his servant, refused to leave his side. More than that, her master was none other than her most revered and beloved older brother. How could she possibly flee in disgrace? That was not the way of the Tiger of Fuiuki. Determined, Taiga stood her ground beside Roy, ready to meet the incoming wave of beasts. As an immense surge of magical energy descended upon the rainforest, the two immediately steeled themselves, prepared for battle. However, the unseen force took note of their presence. After a mere glance in their direction, it launched a few earthen spears. Easily shattered. Before abandoning further tests. Turning away, it led the beasts out of the jungle. Relieved by this turn of events, Roy and Taiga wasted no time and set off for the rainforest city under the rule of Quetzalcoatl. Unlike the arid climate typical of Mesopotamia, stood amid a lush tropical rainforest. Enveloped by dense foliage, the city was humid and stifling. Lacking arable land, its people survived primarily as hunters. Yet, as Roy observed the city, something felt profoundly amiss. It did not resemble a thriving community of hunters at all. Despite the evident traces of human habitation, the city lacked the most fundamental aspect of any settlement: life. It was as if the city were an elderly man on the brink of death. Bereft of vitality, drained of spirit. The streets were devoid of merchants and passers-by, absent of children's laughter. The few middle-aged men that moved through the town wore no smiles. A heavy silence blanketed mirroring its people's subdued, repressed emotions. Roy's gaze sharpened as he activated his detection magecraft, allowing his senses to sweep across the city in an instant. The population numbered in the thousands. But strangely, they were all in their prime. There were few elderly or children among them. His findings led him to a realization: the entire city was populated by young, strong individuals. Had Quetzalcoatl already gathered this many warriors from other cities? And yet, she was nowhere to be found in Ur. Had she left to capture more? Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent's god, one of the supreme deities of Aztec mythology. A goddess who appeared wild and free, yet was, in truth, wise and kind. She despised human sacrifices and loved humanity dearly. She was a god of life and harvest, of culture, of wind and rain. At one point, she was even worshipped as a sun deity. Among all divine beings, she stood at the pinnacle of benevolence. She had gathered these young warriors here not to harm them, but to test and recruit them. When she struck them down, she granted them an instant resurrection, ensuring they never truly perished. Few had ever suffered under her hand. Most of those captured now resided within her. The rest. Roy turned his gaze southward. To a towering sun temple. A strong human presence emanated from within. Many had been gathered there, their blood surging, their breath steady and full of vitality. Undoubtedly in the midst of rigorous training. So that's how it is. Truly befitting of the most benevolent god. Compared to those who wielded their power recklessly, Quetzalcoatl more than lived up to her name. Now, what should I? Before Roy could finish his thoughts, Taiga had already seized his hand, pulling him through the city's streets. As the people of Ur watched Jaguar Man dragging an unfamiliar young man into their city, their eyes flickered with unease. And a trace of sympathy. Clearly, they assumed Roy was yet another outsider taken captive. Wahaha. While I was away, did everyone in Ur miss the beautiful and wise goddess of the jungle? Jaguar Man. Naya. Back in her domain, Jaguar Man pranced through the streets, dragging Roy along in her wake. She playfully left behind some of the young men, greeting them with exaggerated enthusiasm. However, Jaguar Man. Get away from me. I swear, I wasn't trying to escape. I wasn't even thinking about it. At Taiga's sudden approach, unpleasant memories surged forth, their faces paling. They stumbled back, their bodies tense, their voices shrill with panic. Don't come any closer. It was clear from their reactions. These young men were truly terrified of Taiga. To them, she was the smiling monster who mercilessly crushed all resistance. Leaving them barely alive, only to heal them and repeat the process. Oh, why are you scared if you're not trying to escape? Scratching her head, Taiga pouted in confusion. Quetzalcoatl only told me to keep watch so no one ran away. If you're not running, then I don't care what you do. Ha 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 ha. Laughing heartily, she advanced toward the young men, chasing them through the streets like a cat toying with mice. Watching from the sidelines, Roy frowned slightly. His magic allowed him to perceive the colors of a person's soul, revealing their emotions and physical state. The fear within these people was unmistakably real. And Taiga. She was getting carried away. Taking pleasure in others' fear was not something to be encouraged. Even if she meant no harm, even if she saw it as nothing more than harmless fun. She was different from Quetzalcoatl. Unlike Quetzalcoatl, Taiga's divine host was a more traditional deity. No matter how kind or playful she had once been, her divine foundation influenced her nature. And that nature cared little for the feelings of mortals. This was not a good sign. Roy stepped forward to intervene. Enough, Taiga. That's enough. Just as Taiga was about to pounce on one of the terrified young men, her body suddenly tensed. Her tail jerked as an unfamiliar sensation ran through it. What was that? She whipped around, only to see Roy gripping the end of her tail, pulling her back forcefully. Jai-ah. Wah. That hurts. With her balance abruptly stolen, Taiga crashed unceremoniously to the ground, swallowing a mouthful of dirt in the process. Scrambling to her feet, she clutched her tail, wailing, "You can't just grab a tiger's tail." "Wait, I'm a jaguar, aren't I? Anyway, Roy, you're so mean. Who just grabs someone's tail?" Despite her exaggerated protests, Taiga wasn't truly angry. She merely puffed out her cheeks, looking like a younger sister sulking over a sibling's teasing. Roy ignored her antics, instead kneeling to help the fallen young man to his feet. Thank you. Still trembling, the youth muttered his gratitude. Yet, the fear in his eyes remained. Not only toward Taiga, but toward the enigmatic man standing at her side. Am I being dragged down by Taiga? Seeing the fear in the young man's eyes, Roy didn't insist on making him stay. He simply nodded slightly, revealed his identity, reassured him that he wasn't a bad person, and advised him to go home quickly. Ah, got it. Thank you. Hearing this, the young man hurriedly got up and slipped into a nearby house. Ah. Roy Nisen. Why are you ignoring me? I'm your servant now, remember? Taiga, who had been completely ignored by Roy, began throwing another tantrum. But Roy was already immune to her antics. He had just witnessed one of her performances. The same trick wouldn't work on him twice. So he simply stood there, silently watching her continue her dramatic display. Seeing that her usual method wasn't working, Taiga didn't give up. Instead, she escalated, rolling on the ground while wailing loudly. It's over. It's all over. Roy Nisen has started to favor the new and discard the old. Wait, no. He doesn't even have a new servant yet, and he's already abandoning me. He's deliberately ignoring me. What kind of master does this? Woo woo woo. I'm going to be forced to go back and do hard labor for Quetzalcoatl again. Wah. Her exaggerated crying, paired with the rolling, made Roy let out a helpless sigh. He had completely lost to her. Stop messing around, Taiga. I haven't abandoned you. I was just thinking about the abnormalities in this city. Really? Jaguar Man immediately stopped crying. Really? I knew it. There's no way Roy Nisen would abandon me. Jaguar Man, fully revived. But abnormalities? What's abnormal here? I always keep her safe. No one can escape, and no magical beasts can get in. Hearing Roy's words, Taiga scratched the tiger belt on her head. She didn't quite understand what he meant. Aside from the original residents of the rest of the people here were young warriors captured from mother cities by Quetzalcoatl. Her job was to guard them, preventing magical beasts from getting in and ensuring that they were fed properly. As the chosen worker of the gods, she had an excellent work ethic. Since she was tasked with guarding them, she made sure to treat the captives well. Except for a few stubborn young warriors who tried to challenge her, only to be beaten up badly. The rest were treated quite generously. And since she had a big heart, she didn't hold grudges against those who tried to fight her. In fact, she even rewarded them by adding extra magical beast meat to their dinners so they could recover and play with her longer. Naya. So why would Roy Nisen say that her peaceful city was abnormal? She was completely puzzled, utterly unaware that imprisoning people in the first place was already a problem. Seeing the confusion on Taiga's face, Roy sighed, looking somewhat exasperated. After interacting with her for a short time, he was now certain of her current state. He also realized that normal human logic didn't apply to a divine vessel like her. Although he hadn't personally seen the Rock ruled by Gilgamesh, he had completed the seventh singularity and had a general impression of the city. The people of Rock were passionate and filled with hope for tomorrow, even as they stood on the front lines, resisting endless waves of magical beasts. Like the sun, they shone with optimism and determination. But her was different. It was quiet. Deathly quiet. It felt like a stagnant pond, devoid of life. The people here were alive, but they were merely existing. They had no hope. At first, the young warriors captured by Quetzalcoatl still dreamed of escaping and returning to the battlefield. But after multiple failed escape attempts, each time ending with them being easily subdued by the smiling Jaguar Man and dragged back, their fighting spirit was gradually crushed. This place is suffocating. Suffocating? Taiga blinked, still not getting it. Yes. Roy nodded. I see no vitality or hope in these people's eyes. You've taken good care of them, but they're clearly not happy. Lifeless? Fighting? Happiness? Oh. I get it. Hearing his words, Taiga pondered for a moment. Then, her eyes suddenly lit up with wisdom, as if she had figured something out. So Roy Nisen wants to see a gladiator match. Oh, shut up, you dumb cat. What nonsense are you talking about? Before she could finish, Roy smacked her tiger-hooded head, completely shutting her down. He didn't want to waste any more time trying to reason with her. As a divine vessel of the jungle goddess, she was more suited to the berserker class than her current lancer role. Her bizarre thought process and unique interpretation of events would make even other berserkers look tame in comparison. So, he decided to send her away before she caused more trouble. Forget it. Keeping you here will only cause me more problems. Go patrol outside the city. I've been away for a while, and I'm worried that magical beasts might sneak in. Huh? But. No buts. Just go. If I need you, I'll summon you with a command seal. Seeing Roy's firm stance, Taiga didn't argue. She simply nodded in agreement. All right then. I'll be off. Roy Nisen, if you need help, Don't forget to call me. Steam Tiger, launch. Wahahaha. And just like that, Taiga sped off, vanishing beyond the city gates like the wind. Phew. Watching her leave, Roy exhaled slightly. Finally, that exhausting conversation was over. Now that Taiga was gone, he could finally put his plan into action. He needed to gather as much information as possible while Quetzalcoatl was away. Having dealt with Taiga, Roy walked to a certain door and knocked. Inside was the young man who had run away earlier. You can open the door now. I've sent her outsider, so there's no need to be afraid. There was a brief silence. Then, a nervous voice came from inside. Are you telling the truth? Roy replied, yes. Open the door. After a short pause. Creak. The dry wooden door was pushed open slightly from inside, revealing the familiar face of the young man peeking through the gap. Please, come in. Chapter 167, 167 Wrestling. The narrow, dark room was suffused with an oppressive atmosphere. The sealed doors and windows, along with the faint, flickering firelight, rendered the space as stifling as an impenetrable prison. Roy sat on a stone bench, engaging in conversation with the young man before him. So, you're saying that the god captured you all, restricted your freedom, and forbade you from continuing to farm or hunt, is that correct? Yes, I was a soldier on the rock front lines. But one day, while returning home, I was captured by that goddess and brought here. And now, my freedom is restricted. I can't return to the front lines of rock. As he spoke, a flicker of sorrow passed over the young man's face. For him, holding his post on the demon beast front lines was the most meaningful thing he could do, the work that embodied his greatest value. His family and his king were still holding the line in rock, while he was trapped here, powerless to do anything but wait for death. For a warrior of rock, what greater torment could there be? Hearing this, Roy sat silently across from him, his expression turning somber. He understood this pain. When your loved ones and comrades are still fighting, yet you are powerless to help, forced to simply pray for them. Such agony is an unparalleled torment for these passionate young warriors. Have you thought about escaping, or organizing the other soldiers to resist? Roy asked. Of course I have. The young man sighed, his expression growing even more pained and conflicted, his eyes betraying a deep fear. I'm not the only rock soldier captured here. Many of us fought side by side on the demon beast front lines. So, I reached out to them, hoping we could escape together, return to the front lines, and fight once more for rock, for King Gilgamesh. But, it's impossible. No matter how many people I gather, that strange jaguar always shows up with a smile, beats us down, and tosses us back into the square like trash. And that goddess. She's like a walking natural disaster. She can tear apart a mountain with ease, so killing anyone would be trivial. There's no way we can win against beings like that. As he spoke, the young man's face revealed deep terror. When mentioning Quetzalcoatl and Jaguar Man, his eyes instinctively darted away. From his demeanor, it was clear that the actions and overwhelming power of Jaguar Man and Quetzalcoatl had left a lasting shadow on his mortal heart. So, you've lost the courage to resist, is that it? Yes. It's better than resisting pointlessly, suffering needlessly, and being thrown back like a corpse. Some of my comrades were even dragged to the Sun Temple to be used as living sacrifices for that goddess. I've had enough of that. Recalling those tragic experiences, the man raised his hands to cover his head, his eyes filled with deep fear. Those two terrifying goddesses had long since become inescapable nightmares in his heart. If resistance is futile, then staying here at least spares us from so much suffering. The city of Ur has plenty of food reserves, enough to last us a long time. Jaguar Man occasionally brings back some game to share with everyone. But you must realize, this isn't a sustainable way of life. No matter how much food Ur has, without a steady supply, it won't last forever. No matter how strong Jaguar Man is, if she's the only one hunting, she can't possibly provide for so many people. So, what you've chosen is a slow path to death. You're just waiting here to die. Roy's words cut straight to the heart of Ur's plight. Yes, of course we know that. The man shouted, then lowered his head, his face twisted in pain. By now, everyone in this city has come to terms with the reality. There's no way we can escape on our own. After being suppressed for so long, any will to fight has been ground to dust. Rather than resist desperately and be pointlessly killed by those goddesses, it's better to think about how to survive a little longer, to meet our inevitable end. That's probably what everyone in Ur is thinking. In other words, they've given up. Roy fell silent, his calm eyes watching the man as his emotions crumbled. He said nothing. He wouldn't question why they had given up, nor would he feel anger at their resignation. From the perspective of ordinary people, they had already done their best. After enduring so much suffering, It was only natural for their spirits to change. He could sense the struggle and pain in the man's soul, the way his body trembled uncontrollably. This experience was the most painful thing for him, a true torment. Roy couldn't bring himself to rub salt in their wounds. If their roles were reversed, and he were the one suffering inner, the outcome likely wouldn't be much different. It's all right. You've done well. I believe even King Gilgamesh wouldn't blame you for your choice. This is beyond human power. What happened to you isn't your fault. Thank you for sharing so much with me. Now, I'll take my leave. Seeing the young man on the verge of breaking down, Roy didn't press further. He simply patted the man's shoulder and prepared to leave. Wait. Please, there's one more thing I need to ask of you. As Roy was about to leave, the desperate young man suddenly stood up and called out to him. Go ahead. As thanks for the information you've provided, I'll help you if it's not too much to ask. Hearing this, Roy nodded. Thank you so much. The young man spoke with fervent emotion. I know that since you can walk alongside Jaguar Man, you must be a god or a demigod hero. For you, leaving must be easy. So, if possible, I'd like you to deliver a message to my family and King Gilgamesh. Tell them. Roy listened patiently to the man's final words, then nodded slightly before leaving the dark, cramped house. No, it was more like a cage. He stepped back out into the empty streets. After finishing this covert visit, Roy visited a few more houses, and the conclusions he drew were much the same. In short, after spending some time investigating, he had a good understanding of Ur's current situation. Though he knew the truth behind it all, he didn't share it with them. The so-called living sacrifices were actually soldiers who still had the will to fight, gathered by Quetzalcoatl near the Sun Temple for training, waiting for the right moment to act. As for why Jaguar Man didn't let the others leave, it was because the jungle outside was already infested with demon beasts. If they were allowed to leave, they would only be walking into the jaws of those monsters. But neither Quetzalcoatl nor Jaguar Man had explained this to the people. Since the rulers of this place hadn't spoken up, why should an outsider like him interfere? Now, he had two choices. The first was to use the information he'd gathered from the residents to leave and head to Rook to reunite with Merlin and the others. The second was to wait here for Quetzalcoatl to return, then have a proper conversation with this benevolent goddess to discuss the possibility of cooperation. The first option was the safest, with no risk of unexpected complications. But the second offered the greatest rewards. If he could reach an agreement with Quetzalcoatl, it would save him a lot of trouble down the line. However, it also carried significant risk. If he failed, he would likely have to face her in battle. Just like when he faced the false angel empowered by the Holy Grail, in Quetzalcoatl's domain, against a South American goddess of her caliber, he had no confidence in victory. But Roy's eyes shifted slightly, his icy blue mystic eyes manifesting in his pupils. It seemed the choice had already been made for him. Because she had arrived. The sheer magnitude of her Saint Graph was no less than that of the fully empowered Gilgamesh during the Fourth War. Moreover, the aura emanating from her Saint Graph felt closer to that of a divine spirit than the jungle goddess who had possessed Taiga. She was here. Boom. As the alarm bells rang furiously in his mind, Roy immediately channeled his mana and swiftly retreated, narrowly avoiding the sudden flying tackle. A yellow figure somersaulted through the air, then lunged forward, crashing down like a meteor and sending up a cloud of dust. Era. I didn't expect you to dodge my tackle so gracefully. You're not a servant, yet you possess such remarkable reflexes and agility. You're quite capable, intruder, to so boldly enter my domain? From within the dust cloud, a lively, mature woman's voice rang out. Then, a tall figure slowly emerged from the haze. Seeing her, Roy's icy blue eyes narrowed slightly. The information his mystic eyes fed back to him sent a jolt through his heart. This level of Saint Graph, bolstered by the power of this domain, was approaching that of a divine spirit. Such a formidable opponent was a first for him. As expected of the supreme goddess of South America. Quetzalcoatl. Era? It seems you know of me. Did you hear about me from Jaguar Man, or somewhere else? How troublesome. I told them not to reveal my identity so easily. It ruins the fun. Though I don't know how you managed to win over that unreliable cat, since you've set foot in my territory, as a goddess, I must extend my warmest welcome and blessings to you. The figure fully emerged from the dust, her every word and action exuding an undeniable majesty. Coupled with the overwhelming divine energy and aura radiating from her, Roy felt every hair on his body stand on end. If this were a scene from FGO, a boss title like Evil of Humanity manifested or Machine God Descended would undoubtedly appear. Era, you seem afraid of me? You didn't flinch when facing demon beasts, yet I frighten you? Am I that terrifying? Roy shook his head, glancing around. He realized that the jungle must have been under Quetzalcoatl's surveillance all along. His earlier actions with Jaguar Man had undoubtedly been observed. How terrifying. Well, though I don't know what you're so afraid of, I can't hold back any longer. Now, let's begin our wrestling match. With that, the enthusiastic feathered serpent goddess produced a sign from somewhere, holding it high and waving it in front of Roy. It bore some unfamiliar script, but it wasn't hard to guess it read something like, Round 1, she even mimicked the strange, whistle-like BGM that played during televised wrestling matches. Though her demeanor seemed silly, and she wore a constant smile without any killing intent, Roy didn't let his guard down. After all, this was perhaps the strongest opponent he had ever faced. Since you've discovered me, there's no need for pretense. Whether it's conversation or combat, I'm ready. I know you're not a bad person. Despite being misunderstood by humanity, you've done your best to help the people of this era and protect them. For that, you have my respect, feathered serpent goddess. But there's more than one way to save them. If you continue as you are, your efforts will only have a minimal effect. So, I wish to earn your trust and form an alliance, combining our strength to achieve the impossible. Roy used honorifics when speaking of Quetzalcoatl's actions and the kindness and responsibility she embodied. Unlike other deities, she deserved his respect. Eh? You just said something very interesting and bold. It truly moves me. It almost sounds like a confession. It seems you understand much, and know much. Hearing Roy's words, Quetzalcoatl was momentarily stunned, her expression shifting slightly. Was this person before her not some rude intruder, but someone who truly understood her? Free to say such things. He was being far too kind. But words alone aren't enough. If you want me to accept your feelings, then... Boom. A powerful fist shot forward, followed by a flash of movement. Roy quickly raised his hand to block Quetzalcoatl's sudden punch, then twisted his body, using the speed of the Count of Monte Cristo to deliver a spinning kick in return. Wrestle with me. If you can defeat me, I'll consider accepting your feelings. Huh? Channeling his mana, Roy summoned black flames to his hands and stepped forward into a combat stance. But upon hearing Quetzalcoatl's words, he was momentarily stunned, wondering if he'd misheard. No. I didn't mean to express any feelings for you. Besides, I already have. No need to explain, kid. To me, that's what it sounded like. No matter our identities or positions, our true emotions and thoughts can only be conveyed through the collision of our bodies. That is wrestling. It is also the best way for hearts to communicate. Such an absurd theory, and such a capricious attitude. Truly befitting a goddess. But since it's come to this, I won't refuse your proposal, feathered serpent goddess. Beyond combat, there's no way to convince each other. Mana burst, full power. Full body enhancement, advanced. Monte Cristo mythology. Roy stepped into his combat stance, his magic circuits flaring to life as he unleashed a torrent of energy to match Quetzalcoatl's expectations. Such immense power, and such determined eyes. I'm growing fonder of you by the moment, kid. As a bonus, if you lose, I'll give you a chance to pursue me. Huh? Please, spare me that. If I dared to do something so reckless, the one waiting for me at home would surely kill me. So you're already spoken for? What a shame. In that case, then I'll just have to steal you away. Boom. With their conversation concluded, Quetzalcoatl tossed aside her sign and lunged forward, transforming into a yellow streak of light. At such incredible speed and power, Roy's eyes narrowed. His body barely had time to react before he was sent flying. Boom. As several buildings crumbled in the aftermath, their battle had truly begun. Chapter 168, 168. By as the two began their clash, the entire city of trembled violently. Sharp gusts of wind and streaks of light crisscrossed through the massive cityscape. Quetzalcoatl dashed across the rooftops, while Roy, on the ground, desperately tried to put distance between them. We agreed to a wrestling match, little one. Running around like this is going to make me very unhappy. In combat mode, Quetzalcoatl shed her previously gentle demeanor. Her smile and expression turned terrifying. Watching Roy sprint below, she suddenly yanked a massive stone pillar from a nearby building and hurled it toward him. Boom. The pillar crashed into the ground, shattering the streets of Fortunately, Roy had enveloped himself in a protective barrier of mana, deflecting the pillar infused with the goddess's power. Though they had agreed to fight, both were careful to control their strength to avoid harming the mortals in Quetzalcoatl relied solely on her immense physical strength, monstrous combat skills, and battle instincts. The pillar throw, enhanced with a touch of her divine energy, was the smallest scale attack she could manage. Roy quickly realized that close-quarters combat was futile. Even with the Count of Monte Cristo's speed, any attempt to ambush her would be intercepted. Worse, this was her domain. The Sun Temple's influence turned her into a pseudo-reality marble, granting her a significant advantage. Competing with a South American deity in her own territory was beyond reckless. After a few exchanges, Roy knew he had to change tactics. First, he needed to lure her out of her. Only then could he stand a chance. However, mana release, semi-power output. Facing the barrage of stone pillars, Roy raised his hand, gathering mana at his fingertips. He shaped it into a concentrated beam and fired it skyward, piercing through the pillars and aiming directly at Quetzalcoatl. Boom! The massive pillars shattered midair, raining debris onto the city below. Fortunately, the residents, sensing the tremors and explosions, stayed indoors, avoiding casualties. What an impressive instant spell. Era? So you're not a close combat fighter, but a spellcaster? How interesting. You look human, yet you're nothing like one. More like a god. But not quite. Quetzalcoatl, still midair, twisted her body and drew a jagged weapon from her waist. With a single slash, she cleaved the mana beam in two. Whoosh! The radiant energy split, flowing harmlessly past her and dissipating into the clouds. What seemed like a devastating attack was effortlessly neutralized. Don't think about running, kid. Take this. As the goddess closed in, Roy's icy blue eyes locked onto her. His right hand ignited with black flames, forming a blazing sword. He swung it in a wide arc, meeting her descending strike head-on. Clash. The collision of their powers erupted in a burst of mana sparks. Black light exploded, reflecting in both their eyes. This time, Roy was at a disadvantage. His flame sword, conjured from mana and black fire, was no match for her divine construct, and modern mystic code like the Volumen Hydrargyrum would be shattered instantly. This exchange drove home the importance of a powerful weapon in high-level battles. But now wasn't the time to dwell on that. Roy poured more mana into his flame sword, enlarging it to match the goddess's strength. Era? You still have this much mana left? You're full of surprises, kid. Seeing Roy's sudden surge in power, Quetzalcoatl grew excited. She increased her own strength, eager to test his limits. Humphrey. Feeling the immense pressure on his flame sword, Roy smirked. This was exactly what he wanted. As they struggled, he abruptly withdrew his mana, causing the sword to dim. Whoosh! With her increased force, Quetzalcoatl's jagged blade sliced through the weakened flame sword, leaving a deep gash across Roy's chest. The impact sent him flying. Era? What happened? Why did your power drop so suddenly? Are you okay, kid? The goddess was stunned. She had adjusted her strength based on Roy's earlier display. Her weapon shouldn't have overwhelmed him so easily. Clearly, Roy had let it happen. But why? Why take such a grievous wound? Before she could ponder further, she saw something astonishing. Roy, seemingly unharmed, stood on Ur's city walls, waving at her. How? How is this possible? Quetzalcoatl was baffled. Chapter 169, 169 Wrestling. How did you manage that? Quetzalcoatl stared at Roy, who stood unharmed on the city walls, waving at her. Her mind raced with questions. This intriguing kid had taken a direct hit from her and yet stood there unscathed. How? She knew she hadn't held back. Even the other two goddesses of the three-goddess alliance couldn't have withstood that strike without injury. She had felt the blade cut through flesh, the sensation unmistakable. Yet here he was, alive and well. The sight of Roy, still full of energy, left her both astonished and deeply puzzled. Her curiosity about his secrets grew even stronger. How fascinating, how fascinating. You're like a gift box full of surprises. What else do you have in store for me, kid? Quetzalcoatl was exhilarated. An opponent like this was rare, and she was determined to savor every moment. What she didn't know was that Roy hadn't emerged unscathed. He had taken the full brunt of her attack, then used the third magic to reconstruct his body and soul, healing himself instantly. Using the momentum from the blow and the brief moment of her distraction, he had activated the Count of Monte Cristo's noble phantasm to teleport to the city walls, shifting the battlefield. It was a risky plan, but it had worked. Quetzalcoatl, true to her benevolent nature, hadn't pursued him immediately. Her kindness had been his opportunity. I'm sorry, feathered serpent goddess. I took advantage of your kindness. Roy said, standing on the walls, his voice tinged with regret. The Sun Temple had turned her into her divine domain, granting her immense power within its bounds. His attacks had been ineffective, while every strike from her felt like being hit by a speeding train. To stand the chance, he had to lure her out of the city. Even with the Count's speed, escaping her divine territory was nearly impossible. This deception had been his only way out. Now, he stood at the edge of her domain. The sunlight filtered through the jungle outside her, casting dappled shadows on the lush grass. A gentle breeze stirred his hair as Roy raised his hands, assuming a combat stance. Mana surged around him, signaling his readiness to fight seriously. Having used trickery once, he wouldn't do so again. It would be disrespectful to an opponent like her. From here on, he would meet her expectations head-on, giving his all, regardless of the outcome. Ha 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 ha. How amusing, how utterly amusing, kid. Seeing Roy's serious expression, Quetzalcoatl burst into laughter. I was the one who cheated first, yet here you are, apologizing so earnestly. I'm growing fonder of your earnestness by the minute. Very well, if you wish to leave the city, I'll come out and fight you. But she stepped out of her and into the jungle. This jungle is also under the influence of the Sun Temple. It's still my territory, though the boost isn't as strong as in the city. Even here, the fight won't be entirely fair for you. She explained this openly, her tone almost playful. As the supreme deity of South America, her divine territory was vast. The jungle, like her, was part of her domain, which was how she had known of Enkidu's arrival and Roy's earlier movements. Thank you for your honesty, feathered serpent goddess. I'm aware, and I have a plan. Roy smiled, appreciating her candor. Then, he turned toward the jungle and called out, Taika, it's your turn. Got it. The mysterious jungle maiden, the night singer, the mightiest jungle goddess, is here. From the bushes, Jaguar Man emerged, her yellow fur glinting in the sunlight. The enigmatic jungle heroine, absent for an entire chapter, had finally returned. When she had sensed Quetzalcoatl's return, she had wanted to rush to Roy's aid. But he had used a command seal to instruct her to wait in the jungle. Though confused and worried, she had trusted him. After all, he had never led her astray before. If he said to wait, there had to be a reason. Ha, the Sun Temple, huh? But Quetzalcoatl, don't forget. I'm the goddess of the jungle. So, jungle, heed my call. Block out the sun's light, sever the connection to the Sun Temple. With a howl, the jungle stirred. The trees swayed, their shadows expanding to blot out the sunlight. A cool breeze swept through, and the sun's rays could no longer penetrate the canopy. So that's your plan? Using the jungle's authority to temporarily block the sun's influence? Kid, I must say, I'm impressed you managed to win over this unruly kitten. Quetzalcoatl felt her connection to the jungle weaken. It wasn't completely severed, but the barrier was enough to level the playing field. She could easily break through it if she wished, but she chose not to. This was just getting interesting, and she wouldn't spoil the fun. So, kid, you're teaming up with this useless kitten to take me on? Her gaze shifted from Jaguar Man back to Roy. Of course. Meow. I'm Master's servant, so I'll fight by his side. Prepare yourself, Quetzalcoatl. So, you've finally found a master, you foolish cat. Quetzalcoatl nodded, understanding why Jaguar Man had allowed Roy into her and why she now stood against her. But none of that mattered. She smiled at them. If you're master and servant, then it's only fair. Even if you team up, I'll accept the challenge. Ready for the next round? Overtime. Ahaha, you said it, Quetzalcoatl. Don't blame me if I go all out, meow. Jaguar Man, emboldened, raised her strange claw-like weapon, ready to charge. But before she could, Roy grabbed her tail and pulled her back. Ow! Not the tail again. Master, I told you not to grab my tail. Sorry. It won't happen again. Roy apologized, then turned to Quetzalcoatl. We won't be teaming up. This is our fight. Let's keep it between us, like true wrestlers. One-on-one, as we agreed. What do you say? You mean to fight like wrestlers? Her eyes sparkled with excitement. Exactly. Roy nodded. Is that so? That's an offer I can't refuse. With a grin, Quetzalcoatl discarded her shield and jagged sword. She wouldn't rely on her divine weapons. Instead, she would fight as a true wrestler, using only her physical abilities. No sun's blessing, no divine artifacts, just pure, unadulterated strength. This was the fair and honorable combat she craved. Quetzalcoatl. Seeing Quetzalcoatl's serious expression, Jaguar Man's earlier bravado faded. The goddess's smile was reserved for Roy, for this intriguing kid, for a true warrior. If Jaguar Man interfered now, she would regret it. Deeply. She glanced at Roy, who was also smiling, his expression focused and determined. He removed his tattered coat, tied the sleeves around his waist, and began to stretch. This time, he wouldn't rely on his familiar black flames. Instead, he channeled his mana into his fists, assuming a combat stance. He would meet her head-on, with nothing but his own strength. The two exchanged a glance, no words needed. No referee, no bell. Just the clash of fists. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, they moved. Their figures closed the distance, colliding in a flurry of punches. Boom. 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 The sound of fists meeting echoed through the jungle. Trees were uprooted, their trunks splintering under the force of their blows. Dust and debris filled the air as the entire jungle seemed to tremble. Through their fists, their emotions and intentions were conveyed. In this primal clash, two vastly different beings found a connection. This was wrestling. Chapter 170, 170 acknowledged haha. Interesting, truly interesting. Kid, you're far too amusing. Amidst the shattered remnants of the rain-drenched jungle, Quetzalcoatl lay sprawled on the ground, arms outstretched, looking rather disheveled yet utterly content. The satisfaction in her eyes, the lingering smile on her lips. It was clear that she had thoroughly enjoyed the intense wrestling match that had just taken place. After all, there are few gods who can fight me to such a state. Not at all. You held back considerably. You didn't use your divine constructs or noble phantasm against me. You chose to compete with me in the simplest, most direct manner. If you had fought seriously, I would have stood no chance. Roy, still standing only by virtue of the third magic's restorative properties, sighed, feeling utterly drained. He had no right to accept such an honor. Even without relying on her noble phantasm or divine constructs. Without even utilizing her inherent skills. Quetzalcoatl had been able to break his bones hundreds of times over. If not for the third magic, which allowed him to heal and continue fighting, he would have long since been twisted into an unrecognizable heap by her overwhelming and unparalleled wrestling techniques. She had already suppressed her own power to the greatest extent possible, yet he had still needed to rely on the third magic just to endure. There was nothing to take pride in. Even now, as she lay on the ground, Quetzalcoatl had not truly lost her ability to fight. She was merely savoring the moment, finding no need to continue the battle. Give her a brief rest, or let the divine sunlight shine upon this place once more, and within a few breaths, she would be back to full strength. Sure enough, after reveling in the jungle floor for a moment, she stood up again. But this time, as she looked at Roy, the battle-hardened intensity in her gaze had vanished, replaced instead with a hint of respect and recognition. Slowly, she stepped forward, raising her hand lightly and placing it upon Roy's own. Then, channeling her energy. What is this? Roy looked at her in surprise. Haha, don't be so shocked, kid. This is a reward for the victor, as well as a token of my recognition. Seeing Roy's astonished expression, Quetzalcoatl let out a hearty laugh, patting his shoulder in admiration. In terms of temperament, strength, and many other qualities, you are someone worthy of trust. That is why I choose to believe in you. You possess the qualifications to become my master. I am willing to stand by your side and fight alongside you. She met his gaze, her expression solemn as she asked, so, do you have the resolve to grasp the fire of the sun, kid? Feathered serpent goddess. Staring into her earnest eyes, Roy nodded solemnly, his voice steady and determined. I am willing. Though I cannot be certain that I can accomplish such a grand task, I will give my all to see it through. So please, forge a contract with me, feathered serpent goddess. Lend me your strength and stand with me in the battles to come. Of course, master. That is precisely what I intend to do. Hearing Roy's unwavering response, Quetzalcoatl smiled gently before clasping his outstretched left hand firmly in her own. In that instant, a crimson light flashed before their eyes. The magical link was forged. The contract was sealed. As a surge of boundless magical energy flowed into her being, Quetzalcoatl felt an exhilarating rush. Such immense and pure magic power. It is as vast and endless as the ocean. No matter how freely I unleash myself, you will still be able to sustain me. And these 9,000 magical circuits. This body of yours is a natural masterpiece. Calling it a true miracle would not be an exaggeration. Sensing the sheer abnormality of Roy's existence, Quetzalcoatl couldn't help but voice her admiration. No wonder you were able to battle me to such an extent. Roy was equally astonished. The contract had only just been formed, yet she had already discerned so much about his body's nature. It was a testament to her status as a divine spirit. Her abilities and perception were incomparable. Compared to a pseudo-divine vessel like Tyga, Quetzalcoatl, one of the chief god, was in an entirely different league. He couldn't help but reflect on that realization. Though our contract is now in place, master, I do have two small requests to make of you. Quetzalcoatl spoke once more. Please, go ahead. Roy nodded, signaling for her to continue so he could consider her words. Good. They are both rather simple matters. First, tell me your name, master. We've fought for so long, and I have even accepted your confession, yet I still do not know the name of my contractor. That is quite a dilemma for your elder sister, wouldn't you say? Hearing her words, Roy hesitated for a brief moment, wanting to clarify that his previous statements were in no way a confession. But after a short pause, he realized that no matter how much he tried to explain, she would never listen. This god, while kind and broad-minded, was also rather eccentric in certain ways. Trying to reason with her using human logic was a futile endeavor. She followed her own path, guided by a perspective that revolved entirely around herself. Such was the nature of a god. Satisfied, Roy decided not to explain further and directly answered her question. Roy. My name is Roy, and from now on, I am your partner, Quetzalcoatl. I look forward to fighting alongside you. Roy? I will remember that. Quetzalcoatl murmured to herself. But, did you just say that our relationship is not that of master and servant, but rather partners? Like a perfectly synchronized wrestling duo? Wrestling duo? Hearing such an odd description, Roy couldn't help but furrow his brow. But after some thought, he realized it wasn't entirely inaccurate. So, he nodded lightly and accepted it. Yes, like a wrestling duo. Partners who can fight side by side and entrust their backs to each other. I see, I see. Quite bold of you, forming a partnership with a deity. But I must say, I like your straightforward nature more and more. So, have you reconsidered marriage? Even if you already have a family, I wouldn't mind, you know. Please, spare me from that. Roy let out a wry chuckle and hurriedly declined Quetzalcoatl's playful yet serious proposition. He had no idea what this somewhat eccentric deity was truly planning. If he casually agreed and she took it seriously, it could lead to serious trouble. Shiki would definitely cut him down. So, he swiftly changed the topic. What's the second matter? Ah, the second matter is quite simple. Since we are partners now, you don't need to call me by my divine title. Just call me by my name. This privilege is reserved only for the most exceptional warriors recognized by the gods. So, you must cherish it, okay? After their wrestling battle, an exchange that reached deep into their souls, Quetzalcoatl had fully acknowledged the young man before her. Rest assured, I promise to treasure this hard-earned honor, Quetzalcoatl. I believe you. Quetzalcoatl smiled. And I will cherish fighting alongside you as well, Roy. Now that you have earned my recognition, let's return to my sun temple first. We can discuss the current state of Mesopotamia and our plans for cooperation there. Besides, my temple is vast, and there are plenty of dinosaurs that can perform backflips. If you get tired of talking, you can even take a nap there. Looking at the suspiciously enthusiastic Quetzalcoatl, Roy found himself momentarily at a loss for words. Something about this felt a little off. Whoa. Suddenly, Jaguar Man let out a loud howl. I saw Roy Nazan form a new contract, and I got jealous, so I showed up just in time. Back suplex. With a roar, Quetzalcoatl grabbed the suddenly appearing Jaguar Man and effortlessly performed a dazzling back suplex. But this suplex wasn't just any suplex. It sent Jaguar Man flying out of the rainforest with immense force. I will return. In the blink of an eye, Jaguar Man was launched into the sky in a graceful arc, disappearing beyond the jungle. Honestly, this cat who bites the hand that feeds her needed a proper lesson. This wasn't just a punishment for ruining the mood. It was also a little payback for siding against her earlier. Though, now, Roy was no longer considered an outsider. Come, master. Let's go to the temple together. There are many things waiting for us to handle. With Jaguar Man dealt with, Quetzalcoatl enthusiastically grabbed Roy and pulled him toward her temple. Ahaha. Alright, let's go. Roy scratched his head and agreed without hesitation. It definitely wasn't because he was scared by what happened to Jaguar Man. He was simply curious about the backflipping dinosaurs and wanted to discuss Rock's affairs seriously with Quetzalcoatl. Definitely not scared. Chapter 171, 171 Rescue. The Mesopotamian plains stretched endlessly under a sky unmarred by a single cloud, a vast canvas of serene beauty on this radiant day. The heavens above shimmered in a pristine cerulean blue, dotted with wisps of white clouds that drifted lazily across the firmament. The sun blazed with a golden brilliance, its molten rays cascading over the fertile lands between the two rivers. A new day had dawned, and with it, the people who eked out their existence on this ancient soil braced themselves for yet another round in their ceaseless struggle against fate. Far in the distance, within the hallowed halls of Rock's royal palace, a flurry of activity stirred the air. Crowds bustled to and fro, embarking on the day's reports and duties with practiced urgency. High atop the divine tower, seated upon a throne of celestial grandeur, a mysterious figure stirred. His eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of vivid scarlet. Eyes that bore the mark of a god's lineage. My king, you've awakened? The chief priestess, standing vigil beneath the throne, could scarcely contain her delight at seeing Gilgamesh rouse from his slumber. She stepped forward, eager to deliver the day's agenda, only to pause as the newly awakened king raised a hand to halt her. He turned his piercing gaze upon her and asked, "How long was I asleep, Siduri?" "My king." She replied with deference, "You've rested for 3 hours, from yesterday until now." 3 hours. A rare respite indeed, he mused. "Very well," Gilgamesh said, a faint weariness etching his features as he nodded toward Siduri. Then, my king, today's matters in Ruk. Siduri began, only to falter as Gilgamesh shook his head, cutting her off with a firm command. Put the work aside for now, Siduri. Tell those useless fools to wait outside a little longer. This king has other matters to attend to. As you wish. Siduri bowed her head in compliance. With that, Gilgamesh's attention shifted downward to a certain white-haired Magus who stood below, a figure whose reliability was questionable at best. His voice rumbled with authority as he demanded, Merlin, where is this powerful ally you spoke of? Why hasn't he arrived in Ruk after all this time? Are you mocking me, your king? Ah, well. Merlin scratched his head, visibly puzzled by Gilgamesh's accusation. It's been quite a while. By all accounts, he should have emerged by now. What could have gone wrong? Merlin's confusion was genuine, though the fault was his own. In his negligence, he had failed to warn Roy not to teleport directly to Ruk's inner coordinates. The moment Roy had arrived, he'd been flung back by the grand defensive barrier Gilgamesh had erected around the city. Worse still, he'd been hurled straight into the lair of a beastly chieftain. By the time Merlin's clairvoyance had spotted him, it was too late to intervene. Even at his swiftest, Merlin couldn't hope to dash from Ruk to the rainforests of Ur in a single breath. Yet when he saw Roy dispatch the monstrous beasts with ease and refrain from clashing head-on with the golden adversary, opting instead to flee into the rainforest, Merlin had breathed a quiet sigh of relief. That counterfeit Enkidu wielded the full might of the authentic chains of heaven, augmented by a formidable magical core. The Holy Grail itself. Paired with the relentless harassment of the beasts, a direct confrontation with a golden foe in such a place would have left Roy with little chance of timely reinforcements from Ruk. But the rainforest was no sanctuary either. It harbored a mighty deity of its own. Due to that god's presence, even the combined clairvoyance of Merlin and Gilgamesh couldn't pierce the veil shrouding the region. Still, reports from Assassin and Saber's prior reconnaissance offered some insight. The deity reigning there was formidable, yet distinct from the beastly chieftains. It held dominion over Ur, imprisoning its human inhabitants within the city's walls, but refrained from wholesale slaughter or sacrificial rites. Given Roy's current strength, even if he couldn't triumph over such a foe, escape should have posed no great challenge. So why, after entering the rainforest, had he vanished without a trace? Why hadn't he emerged? Surely he hadn't been captured by that goddess. No, that couldn't be possible. Could it? Though reluctant to entertain the notion, it now loomed as the most plausible explanation. Weighing the situation, Merlin's thoughts veered toward the worst possibility before he resolved to act. King Gilgamesh, he said, stepping forward, my friend has ventured into Ur's territory and may be in grave danger as we speak. Please permit me to go to his aid. Oh? Gilgamesh's scarlet eyes glinted with surprise. Since when do you volunteer for extra work, Merlin? He knew Merlin's character all too well. Though undeniably skilled, the Magus was a notorious slacker at heart, prone to shirking duties whenever he could. His X-rank clairvoyance, while exceptional, was limited to the present moment. A flaw that constrained its utility. Since summoning Merlin to this era, Gilgamesh had entrusted him with tasks the fool had yet to complete. Months had passed, and the tablets of destiny remained lost. What use was he to the king? Were it not for Merlin's passable strength and the pressing need for capable hands, Gilgamesh would have long since punished him for dereliction under Ruk's royal decree. Yet now, this idler dared to request a mission abroad? It was an unexpected turn indeed. It seemed Merlin truly valued this so-called friend. Very well then. A spark of amusement flickered in Gilgamesh's mind. He fixed Merlin with a stern glare and barked, fool. You've yet to finish your assigned duties. What time do you have to gallivant off to a backwater like her? Stay here and complete the task I gave you. Find the tablets of destiny, understood? Ah. Merlin faltered. I know I've been remiss in locating the tablets, and I'll own that lapse. But my friend. If I don't go to him. Before he could muster a defense, Gilgamesh seized a clay tablet from his side and flung it at him with unyielding resolve. No need to dwell on that. If he recommended this ally, he must possess some notable talent. Naturally, I'll see to it. But the tablets of destiny. No one in Ruk save you, with your clairvoyance, is suited to retrieve them. With the beastly assaults waning of late, and Archer and Lancer commanding the front lines with skill, the tide will hold without issue. So, I'll send Assassin and Rider in your stead to investigate her. After a moment's deliberation, the king arrived at a decision he deemed satisfactory. Unlike you, whose sight can't pierce the rainforest, Assassin has infiltrated Ur once before and is better suited for this task. With Rider's mobility as support, there should be no complications. Eh? Merlin blinked, caught off guard by the arrangement. To dispatch 2 servants to rescue Roy. Such extravagance seemed excessive, no matter how he looked at it. Humphrey. No need to look so baffled, Merlin. Gilgamesh said, tapping a finger against his crimson eyes. Don't forget, I too possess a fine pair of eyes. Though I'm not the me from that same timeline, I can still glimpse fragments of that fascinating war. Assassin, you see, still blames himself for Saber's death on their return from Myr after their last mission together. He's eager to redeem himself. I'll grant him this chance. He won't refuse. At the mention of Assassin and Saber, Merlin tilted his head. Oh? Is that warrior still haunted by his failure to protect that Christian boy? Indeed. Gilgamesh replied with a faint sigh. The mission was a success, yet since returning, he's been clamoring to face that jaguar in a duel to the death. Were it not for Archer and Ryder holding him back, he'd have stormed off alone by now. These warriors. Every one of them a magnet for trouble. True enough. Merlin mused. That region houses a genuine deity who's turned into a divine kingdom on Earth. For him to escape a god's grasp and return with vital intelligence. That alone is astonishing. Precisely why I trust him with this task. Gilgamesh said. But if he goes again, Merlin, and his impulses get the better of him, could it not spell chaos? Merlin's concern was valid. Should Assassin's recklessness derail the plan, Roy wouldn't be the only one at risk. They could all perish in Ur. Humphrey. Rest easy. Gilgamesh retorted. Assassin has sworn to me he'll keep his composure. I trust his honor and his word. Besides, that eccentric Ryder hails from the same land as he does. With Ryder to rein him in, he'll know what's at stake. I see. Merlin nodded, conceding the point. When it came to reading people and wielding authority, he couldn't rival Gilgamesh. The king ruled, he merely advised. In such matters, Merlin deferred to the wisdom of the ancient sovereign. Good. If that's settled, you've no more excuses, Merlin. Gilgamesh said, his tone brooking no dissent. Get out of Ruck and resume your search for the tablets of destiny. Leave the rest to me. Any objections? Ahaha, none at all. Merlin replied with a sheepish laugh, his scheme to slack off under the guise of aiding Roy thoroughly foiled. He offered no protest. Best not to stoke Gilgamesh's wrath now. With a wry smile, he accepted the mission, though inwardly he bristled at the king's penchant for trouble. The tablets of destiny. Lost to a place beyond even his sight. Mesopotamia sprawled vast and untamed. How was he to find something his clairvoyance couldn't locate? What a vexing king indeed. Yet there was no turning back. The search must go on. Dejected, Merlin trudged out of Ruck's palace, brushing past the throngs milling at its gates. At the temple's edge, he lifted his gaze to the blistering sun overhead, his expression tinged with gloom. Gilgamesh's orders were clear, arrange for Assassin and Ryder to head to Ur, then leave Ruck at once to scour the world for the tablets. With the added decree that he not return without them. What a relentless taskmaster. Compared to this, he suddenly found himself longing for his days as a court Magus in Britain. Artoria had been a handful, but at least the toil wasn't this relentless. And Roy. He stared toward the distant rainforest, exhaling a heavy sigh. Where are you, old friend? With your help, surely I wouldn't be drowning in overtime like this. He couldn't help but wonder. Chapter 172, 172 Resolve of Humanity. Is this really the right thing to do? Using your death to ignite the flames of rebellion in these humans. I find it hard to evaluate such a plan. Even though I've already agreed to become your ally and have formed a contract with you, still. No, this is good, Quetzalcoatl. If we simply protect them without reason, the people of Ur will never understand the true cost and purpose of that protection. What I seek is not blind protection or indulgence. I want to see them pick up their weapons once more and continue to fight against their fate. In response to Quetzalcoatl's confusion, Roy gently shook his head and spoke with unwavering seriousness. They must understand that miracles only appear when humanity fights with everything they have. Miracles only appear when humanity fights with everything they have? Quetzalcoatl's eyes gleamed with admiration as she repeated Roy's words, savoring their meaning. Indeed, she loved humanity. But not the entirety of the species. What she truly admired were the warriors among them, those who possessed noble qualities and a golden spirit. It was these individuals who had drawn her in, compelling her to protect them and watch them grow. And now, this young man before her shared the same ideals. Was their meeting truly a coincidence, or was it destiny? A smile crept onto Quetzalcoatl's lips as she turned to Roy. Then what should I do to rekindle the fighting spirit in these humans who have nearly given up? Awakening the hearts of humans is both difficult and simple. Difficult? Simple? Quetzalcoatl tilted her head, puzzled by Roy's seemingly contradictory statement. Yes. Roy nodded, explaining his thoughts. It's simple because applying enough pressure can provoke rebellion. What you might call hitting rock bottom and bouncing back. But it's difficult because truly igniting the flames of resistance in their hearts is no easy task. Humans are highly impressionable creatures. They can descend to the depths of depravity, yet they are also capable of rising to the heights of nobility. So, what should we do to witness this transformation? Quetzalcoatl pressed. It's quite simple, actually. All we need is a trial. Or death. Death and trials? Though Quetzalcoatl agreed with Roy's reasoning, his mention of death and trial still left her with questions. Most of the humans in her had been brought here from other cities. When facing soldiers from different regions, she would judge their resolve and decide whether to grant them true death or spare them. According to her unique trial criteria, if someone challenged her with a determination to die, she would fight them seriously. But if they lacked the resolve to face her, she would spare their life. In the moment she struck them down, she would grant them an equal chance at revival. Yet, even after all this, she had yet to find a satisfactory answer. Could death and trials truly provide the solution she sought? No. Roy replied firmly, addressing her doubts. The death required for this trial isn't someone else's. It's mine. You would use your own life to awaken them. Quetzalcoatl's eyes widened in shock. Sacrificing oneself to inspire humanity. Such resolve was almost too much to comprehend. Of course, I'm not actually going to die. Roy quickly clarified, seeing a look of awe on Quetzalcoatl's face. I just need to make them believe I died fighting for their cause. Ah! Boom! Boom! Explosions and flashes of light erupted repeatedly above her. After hours of silence, the city was once again engulfed in chaos. Magical energy output maximum, annihilation mode. A figure falling from the sky raised his hand, pointing like a gun toward Quetzalcoatl above. A terrifying blast of energy shot forth. Whoosh! As the magical circuits on his body surged, a colossal stream of energy tore through the clouds. What a fearsome attack! But this level of power is still far from enough to defeat me. Quetzalcoatl couldn't help but praise the destructive beam Roy had unleashed. An attack of this magnitude was comparable to a knee-rank noble phantasm, something even most servants would struggle to achieve. Yet, her master had unleashed it so effortlessly. He was truly exceptional. So much so that she found him increasingly enigmatic. Instead of blocking the attack head-on, Quetzalcoatl raised her shield-covered arm, deflecting the torrent of energy. The massive stream was absorbed by the intricate patterns on her shield, and with a flick of her wrist, she redirected its trajectory. With that exchange, the two resumed their battle. A white streak of light clashed with a golden figure, their movements reducing much of the city to rubble. This time, they didn't hold back, deliberately amplifying the destruction to ensure the entire city would take notice. Boom! Explosions echoed throughout her, shattering streets and walls. The violent tremors forced those hiding in their homes to confront the reality that their fragile shelters could no longer protect them. What's happening? Are demonic beasts attacking? Has the day of reckoning finally come? Trembling, they peeked out from their homes, their hearts filled with despair. Crash! A heavy object fell from the sky, landing in the central square, sending debris flying in all directions. The two combatants finally came to a halt. That's... The citizens of Ur recognized the goddess who had brought them here, the living disaster who had terrorized them. But the young man in her grasp. He's the warrior sent by King Gilgamesh to save us. Some of the residents who had spoken with Roy earlier recognized him and cried out in disbelief. Roy had introduced himself as a messenger from the northern King Gilgamesh, sent to rescue them. The king sent a warrior to save us? So, Gilgamesh hasn't abandoned us after all. He sent someone to risk their life for us. Tears welled up in the eyes of the young men from Ur. Knowing that their king still remembered them, that he had sent a warrior into this perilous place to fight for their freedom, filled them with a renewed sense of purpose. If their king hadn't given up on them, how could they give up on themselves? Seeing this, the young men of Ur exchanged determined glances and stepped forward. Good, this is good. Quetzalcoatl smiled as she observed the change in their demeanor. The spark of defiance in their eyes was a welcome sight. But this level of courage was still insufficient. To overcome the impending catastrophe, they would need far more than this. What she truly desired was to see humans who, even in the face of darkness and overwhelming odds, would never yield. Humans who would fight with everything they had to overcome any obstacle. And so, she decided to follow Roy's plan. Looking down at the humans who had dared to step forward, she declared, "Behold, pitiful humans. Even the warrior sent by our king is no match for me. For his defiance, he will now pay the ultimate price. To think he believed he could save you with his life. How laughable. I am a god, the strongest of gods, an existence you weaklings could never hope to defeat. As punishment for his insolence, I will hang him above the temple of the sun and let the scorching flames drain the life from his body. He will perish in agony and despair." Quetzalcoatl lifted Roy into the air and hurled him toward the temple. With a swift motion, she grabbed a stone spear and impaled him against the temple wall. In an instant, the temperature in her soared, transforming the city into a blazing inferno. "What are you trying to do?" Seeing Roy pinned to the temple, the young man who had spoken with him earlier could no longer remain silent. He rushed back to his home, grabbed his battered stone spear, and stood before Quetzalcoatl. Though fear still gripped his heart, he stepped forward without hesitation. This was his fault. The warrior must have been inspired by his words to challenge the goddess. And now, he had paid the ultimate price. He was a sinner, a coward who had caused the warrior's downfall. He could no longer stand by and watch. If he allowed a young man to die for him while he did nothing, how could he call himself a citizen of Ur? How could he call himself a warrior? For too long, he had been paralyzed by fear. But now, it was time to act. And so, he stood before Quetzalcoatl, ready to sacrifice himself. "Oh? Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" Quetzalcoatl's expression turned menacing as she addressed the young man. "I am afraid." The young man didn't lie. He admitted his fear openly. But even so, he didn't retreat. "I fear death," he said, meeting Quetzalcoatl's gaze. "But I fear living with the guilt of cowardice even more. When I learned that King Gilgamesh hadn't abandoned us, I was moved beyond words. I felt that even death would be worth it. And now, this warrior has risked his life to challenge you for our sake. How can I do any less? I cannot stand by and watch my savior, the warrior sent by my king, die before my eyes. So today, I challenge you, goddess. Release the warrior. If you seek punishment, direct it at me." No longer afraid of the scorching heat or the divine power before him, the young man raised his spear and let out a battle cry. "I, a soldier of the northern demon beast front of Rock, challenge you, goddess. And I. Count me in. I won't be left behind." One by one, more young men stepped forward, brandishing their worn weapons. Their eyes burned with determination as they shouted the battle cries of Rock. "Rock stands. Rock stands. Rock stands." These were the words King Gilgamesh had often used to inspire them, the words they had shouted countless times on the battlefield. Though they had been subdued here, the pride of Rock and the fire in their hearts had never been extinguished. Now, they had awakened. They would no longer cower before the power of a god. Like the warrior who had dared to challenge the goddess, they too were fighters. They were the defenders of their homeland, the guardians of their people's happiness. And so, victory! Victory! Their cries echoed throughout as the soldiers formed ranks, their weapons raised high. Then, as one, they charged toward the goddess. Chapter 173, 173 Spark of Rebellion. As the first warrior stepped forward, the cacophony of panic, fear, and despair that had filled the air fell silent. All eyes turned to the soldier from Rock as he marched toward Quetzalcoatl, his spear pointed squarely at the goddess. Behind him, more and more soldiers emerged, forming ranks and raising their weapons in defiance of the divine being towering above them. Some among the crowd, still gripped by fear, tried to dissuade them from what seemed like a futile act of suicide. But the soldiers only offered them a calm, resolute smile before continuing their advance. Their eyes, clear and unwavering, held no trace of hesitation or doubt. The determination in their gaze silenced them, leaving them to clench their fists and watch in stunned silence as the brave souls marched to their potential doom. They knew, deep down, that their own cowardice and weakness rendered them unworthy of standing in the way of such courage. The number of those stepping forward grew rapidly, forming a long, unbroken line. No longer paralyzed by the oppressive heat or the overwhelming presence of the goddess, these men and women picked up their weapons and stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to charge toward the blazing sun that was Quetzalcoatl. For Rock! For Rock! The thunderous war cries reverberated through the city, shaking the very air and stirring something deep within Quetzalcoatl's heart. "You!" Quetzalcoatl gazed down at the mortal soldiers charging toward her. Though fear still flickered in their eyes, they pressed on, undeterred by the scorching heat that made even standing a torment. Not a single one of them retreated. Instead, they summoned their courage, embraced the certainty of death, and charged forward with unwavering resolve. Their eyes, once dull and lifeless, now burned with a spark. A spark of rebellion. It was small, fragile even, but it was undeniably there. Just as Roy had said. Humans were neither inherently noble nor base. They could become anything, depending on the guidance they received and the leaders who inspired them. Once they found their direction, they could rise from the depths of despair and strive toward their ideals. Yes, a single spark was feeble, barely enough to pierce the darkness. But countless sparks, gathered together, could form a bonfire. A fire so bright it could rival the sun itself. Quetzalcoatl believed this with all her heart. And it wasn't just the soldiers of Rock. The people of Ur, long imprisoned and broken, were also ignited by this fiery resolve. They picked up whatever weapons they could find. Sticks, stones, anything. and joined the charge. Their eyes, too, burned with the same fierce determination, as they threw themselves into the growing inferno of rebellion. Two streams of humanity converged, forming an unbreakable wall. Though they came from different cities and had no prior connection, they now stood together, united in their fight against the goddess who symbolized oppression and calamity. Victory! 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 The chants grew louder, the light at their feet brighter and more dazzling. It was so radiant that Quetzalcoatl had to shield her eyes, momentarily unsure whether it was the sun or the humans themselves that shone so brilliantly. How beautiful! Ooh! As the people of Ur ignited the flames of rebellion and rallied against their fate, a towering figure on the distant front lines of Ruck's war against the demonic beasts seemed to sense something. The giant, bound in iron chains, raised his head and turned his gaze toward Ruck, his eyes alight with an indescribable excitement. Rebellion. Oppression. He roared, his voice shaking the earth. For freedom, hurrah! The sudden outburst startled the soldiers around him. They turned to look at the giant, confused by his sudden fervor. But the giant paid them no mind, continuing to shout and gesture wildly. Berserker, what's going on? Noticing the commotion, a white-clad archer who had been commanding the front lines flew back to investigate. He landed near the giant, his expression one of concern. Though berserkers were known for their lack of rationality, this particular berserker had been relatively stable since his summoning. Aside from his initial outburst against Gilgamesh, which had led to his subjugation, he had been a reliable ally, fighting valiantly alongside Ruck's soldiers and even sharing his thoughts on freedom and oppression during quieter moments. But now, something had clearly set him off. Oh. Rebellion. I feel it. The spark of rebellion. The giant bellowed, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. No matter the land, oppressors exist, but the flames of freedom and rebellion cannot be extinguished. The fire has been lit. With that, Berserker leaped from the high walls of the city and began sprinting toward the horizon, his massive form barreling through the battlefield. Berserker, where are you going? Archer shouted after him. Oh. To seek freedom. To guide it. To spread the spark of rebellion. Has he completely lost his mind? Seeing Berserker's reckless charge toward the demonic horde, Archer knew he had to act. Allowing a giant to breach their defenses would spell disaster for the entire front and, by extension, Ruck itself. As the commander of this front, it was his duty to stop this madness. After quickly issuing orders for the soldiers to hold the line in his absence, Archer leaped into the air, soaring over Berserker's head. He landed in front of the charging giant, his white bow drawn and aimed squarely at him. Whoosh! Several arrows, glowing with blue magical energy, shot past Berserker, cutting off his path. Archer's voice was firm as he addressed the giant. Return to the front lines, Berserker. I won't ask twice. His bowstring was taut, his aim unwavering. The message was clear, any further defiance would be met with force. Chapter 174, 174 King. Humphrey, not bad at all. Quetzalcoatl's lips curled into a smile as she observed the crowd gathered below. With a wave of her hand, she withdrew her noble phantasm, and the searing heat and unbearable pain that had plagued the city vanished in an instant. Honestly, you humans never cease to amaze me. So weak, yet capable of harboring such a captivating spark. Perhaps that's why I've always been so fond of your kind. She murmured to herself, her expression softening. As the people below struggled to comprehend the sudden disappearance of the oppressive heat, Quetzalcoatl's menacing demeanor faded, replaced by a warm, gentle smile. Really? If you had shown this kind of resolve earlier, things wouldn't have had to get so complicated. But it's not too late, I suppose. After a moment of reflection, she took action, much to the astonishment of the onlookers. Instead of unleashing destruction, she flew up to the temple and pulled the spear from Roy's shoulder. The two exchanged a knowing smile. Well, Quetzalcoatl? Are you satisfied with the answer that has been given to you? Roy asked, his eyes opening as he turned to her. Ha 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 ha, satisfied. Of course. I'm satisfied. More than satisfied, in fact. I couldn't have asked for a better answer. This is what humanity should be. Quetzalcoatl gently set Roy down from the temple wall, attempting to embrace him, but he shook his head and declined. She had been about to chide him for being stubborn, but her words caught in her throat as she watched the wound from the spear heal at an astonishing rate. For the sake of realism. And at Roy's insistence. The spear had been driven deep, avoiding vital points but with enough force to pin him to the temple wall. By all accounts, Roy should have been severely injured, and Quetzalcoatl had even prepared to take him into the temple for healing. But this rapid, almost unnatural recovery left her stunned. She had been impressed during their earlier battle, but witnessing this up close was something else entirely. It was a power she had never seen before, one that seemed to act directly on the soul, influencing and repairing the body in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. But it didn't matter. Everyone had their secrets, and Roy's was no exception. As long as their contract remained, they were allies who could trust each other with their lives. And she would extend that trust in kind. So, what's next, Master? Shall we send these people back to Ruck? Quetzalcoatl asked cheerfully, her mood significantly brighter. Having witnessed their will to survive and their unyielding resolve, she no longer worried about their future. Though weak, these humans were anything but insignificant. With such a radiant spirit, they would surely overcome the impending calamity. She believed this wholeheartedly. And now, she and Roy would stand by their side, fighting alongside them. Not yet, Roy replied, shaking his head. Ruck is already struggling to manage the front lines and support its citizens. Sending tens of thousands more would only create more problems. Besides, if our alliance becomes known, King will surely send his demonic beasts after us. Even with our protection, many lives would be lost during the journey. You're right. It would be irresponsible to simply send them back after everything that's happened. So, let's go down and meet them. Let's see these golden-hearted humans. The ones I've came to cherish. Overjoyed, Quetzalcoatl spread her arms and embraced Roy, a reward for showing her such a beautiful sight. Then, taking his hand, she flew down to the crowd. At that moment, even amidst the thousands below, she was the happiest, her laughter ringing out like a melody. It's the hero. It's really him. As Roy landed, the young men who had been worried for him rushed forward, their faces filled with emotion. Hero, thank goodness. We're so relieved to see you're safe. Thank you for everything you've done for us. If you return to Ruck, please tell my family, my wife and child, that their husband and father was a hero, not a coward. And me. And me. The crowd swarmed around Roy, their voices overlapping as they shared their final words. Then, with renewed determination, they turned their spears toward Quetzalcoatl, the flames in their eyes burning brighter than ever. Protect the hero. With a thunderous roar, they advanced, surrounding Quetzalcoatl, ready to avenge their fallen comrades. How fascinating. Even now, you refuse to let that spark of rebellion die. You truly are remarkable. All right, I concede. I've lost to you humans. As a goddess, I can accept my defeat. Quetzalcoatl's eyes shone with pride as she addressed the crowd. So, be proud, mortals. You've overcome a god with your willpower. I will no longer imprison you. As for those I took as offerings to the Sun Temple, don't worry. They weren't sacrificed. I trained them into a formidable army. They're still in the temple, honing their skills. What? The people of Ruck stared at her in disbelief. You didn't eat them? Huh? What kind of goddess do you take me for? I'm a benevolent deity, one of the kindest in the world. And stop looking at me like I'm some monster. But a bet is a bet. Since you've defeated me, I won't use my divine power to restrict your freedom anymore. Now, let's reunite you with your long-lost comrades. With a clap of her hands, a well-disciplined army marched out from the temple. Clad in heavy armor and moving in perfect unison, they were a force to be reckoned with. A testament to Quetzalcoatl's training. Tears welled up in the eyes of the onlookers as they recognized familiar faces among the soldiers. Friends, family, and comrades they had thought lost forever. The scene quickly turned into an emotional reunion, the solemn atmosphere replaced by joyous cries and heartfelt embraces. Watching this unfold, Roy and Quetzalcoatl exchanged smiles. Yes, this was the best possible outcome. As the crowd surged with life, her spirit was reignited. The warriors, no longer bound by fear, had embraced their humanity and their resolve. This was the choice Quetzalcoatl had hoped to see, the ending she had longed for. Well then, the people of are in your hands now, King of Heroes. Huh? Roy blinked at the strange title, but Quetzalcoatl was already raising his hand high, her voice amplified by magic to echo across the city. All hail the King of Heroes. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices shaking the very foundations of King of Heroes. King of Heroes. The city trembled with their fervor. Isn't this a bit too much, Quetzalcoatl? I'm not cut out to be a king. Roy glanced at the jubilant crowd, then at the smirking goddess beside him. No, you have the makings of a king. Quetzalcoatl shook her head, her tone firm. I've been a goddess long enough to recognize such qualities. You're the one who formed a contract with me, after all. I believe you can lead the people of to overcome the coming calamity. So. She leaned in, whispering in his ear, be a little prouder, master. This power, this conviction. It's why you're fit to be king. You have my recognition. With that, she bowed her head, a gesture of respect that sent shockwaves through the crowd. A goddess, bowing to a king? It was a sign of respect, of acknowledgement. An honor even Gilgamesh had never received. Their king had surpassed the gods. The crowd's admiration burned brighter, their faith unwavering. Then, I leave it to all of you," Roy said, raising his hand. In response, thousands of arms shot into the air, their voices united. "All hail the King of Heroes! All hail the King of Heroes!" The cheers echoed through the heavens, a testament to their newfound unity. At that moment, doubt and pain were cast aside. Their king would guide them forward, and they would follow him to the ends of the earth. As Roy looked out over the sea of faces, a satisfied smile spread across his lips. He knew that the people of Ur had found their resolve. With faith and determination, they would face any challenge and emerge victorious. Though he had never been a king, he would do everything in his power to lead them to a brighter future. They would prevail. He was certain of it. Chapter 175, 175 Farewell. What is a king? Is it a wise ruler who shelters their people, entrusting them with dreams and protection? Or is it a conqueror who pursues distant horizons, willing to sacrifice everything for the future and their ideals? Perhaps it is a defiant rebel who refuses to bow to the gods, claiming authority through sheer will? All these paths of kingship are valid. Yet, in Roy's eyes, they weren't entirely correct. To him, a king was akin to a shepherd. A tool, albeit an advanced one, meant to guide the flock. Having finished his tasks, Roy stepped down from the throne in the Sun Temple, which doubled as Ur's palace, and let out a weary sigh. His original plan had been to foster mutual understanding between Quetzalcoatl and the people of Ur, allowing her to lead them in facing the impending calamity brought by Tiamat. But he hadn't anticipated Quetzalcoatl's cunning side. She had deftly shifted the responsibility of guiding Ur's people onto his shoulders, leaving him to lead tens of thousands of lives. Yet, what did he know about being a king? If circumstances allowed, he would have gladly handed Ur's population crisis over to Gilgamesh, who was already overworked in Ruk. Compared to Roy, a pseudo-king thrust into power by a goddess, Gilgamesh was the true and capable ruler. Moreover, the thousands of soldiers Quetzalcoatl had taken from Ur were eager to return to the front lines of the demon-beast war. But the time wasn't right yet. "What are you thinking about, Master?" Roy was pulled from his thoughts by Quetzalcoatl's voice. He looked up to see her standing before him, having returned from training the soldiers. He remembered she had left in the morning. Her return to the Sun Temple meant he had been busy here all day. For someone who wasn't a true king, he had surprisingly thrown himself into the role. "Nothing much. Just planning Ur's next steps," Roy replied, taking a rough clay tablet from an attendant and handing it to Quetzalcoatl. "This is..." Quetzalcoatl's eyes widened as she read the information inscribed on the tablet. It detailed a comprehensive plan for Ur's future. First, a portion of the workforce would be allocated to restore basic agriculture. They would also hunt edible game in the rainforest, using the Sun Temple's energy to preserve the meat as emergency rations. Additionally, they would construct sturdy defensive lines in the rainforest to fend off future demon-beast attacks. Next, envoys would be sent to Ruk to establish an alliance with Gilgamesh, informing him of Ur's situation and offering support when needed. They would also deliver letters from the soldiers stranded in Ur to their families, assuring them that their loved ones were alive and fighting alongside a hero. Lastly, Roy planned to visit Ereshkigal, the mistress of the Mesopotamian underworld and a member of the Three Goddess Alliance, to persuade her to join their cause in protecting humanity. To ensure Ur's survival, they needed food, weapons, training, and allies. Time was of the essence, and they had to act swiftly. However, they couldn't afford to draw too much attention. If King Gorgon discovered Quetzalcoatl's betrayal, Ur would face relentless attacks from demon beasts. Unlike Ur, which had a robust defensive line, Ur was ill-equipped to withstand such an onslaught. After reading the plans, Quetzalcoatl frowned and began to ponder. Roy was right. Due to the oath of the Three Goddess Alliance, she couldn't directly attack King U or the self-proclaimed Tiamat, the beast goddess. Violating the oath would result in severe backlash, potentially even costing her life. Similarly, King and his mother couldn't invade her territory without facing consequences. But if they discovered her alliance with Roy, they could bypass the oath's penalties and unleash their demon beasts on Ur. The fragile spark of humanity they had gathered would be extinguished. The stakes were too high. Understanding this, Quetzalcoatl had refrained from wandering Mesopotamia as she usually did. Instead, she stayed within Ur, training the soldiers and safeguarding the city. Roy's plan to ally with Gilgamesh made sense. Like her, the king of Ruk sought to help humanity survive the impending catastrophe. But the final part of the plan, approaching Ereshkigal, left Quetzalcoatl puzzled. Unlike Gilgamesh, Ereshkigal was a full-fledged goddess, one of the most fearsome in Mesopotamian mythology. As the ruler of the underworld, she exuded an aura of death that made her difficult to approach. Quetzalcoatl had only interacted with her through illusions during the Three Goddess Alliance meetings. From what she had seen, Ereshkigal didn't strike her as benevolent. What if Ereshkigal had truly allied with King to destroy humanity? If Roy's plan backfired, Ur would be doomed. Quetzalcoatl couldn't help but voice her concerns. Master, do you know Ereshkigal well? You mean the mistress of the underworld? Yes. I've only seen her a few times through the Three Goddess Alliance's illusions. I've never actually met her. I see. Roy paused, then shook his head. I'm sorry, Quetzalcoatl. While I do have some unique insights about her, I don't know her as well as you might think. Like you, I've never met her in person. Huh? Quetzalcoatl was taken aback. How could Roy have insights about a goddess he had never met? Did Ereshkigal visit him in a dream? Of course, she didn't know that Roy's insights came from his experiences playing Fate, Grand Order and completing its 7th chapter. Ereshkigal, affectionately nicknamed Eresh by players, was the mistress of the Mesopotamian underworld. Though often misunderstood, she was a kind-hearted goddess who sought light despite her role in the realm of death. Like Quetzalcoatl, she had joined the Three Goddess Alliance to buy time and protect humanity in her own way. Defeating Tiamat would be impossible without her help. Only by trapping Tiamat in the underworld, where she couldn't sense living beings, could they hope to defeat the primordial mother goddess. Roy was confident that, with the right approach and a suitable gift, he could persuade Ereshkigal to aid them. In any case, I'll need to leave for a while. I'm entrusting her to you, Quetzalcoatl. Roy handed her the clay tablet containing his plans. It was all he could do for her at the moment. He wasn't a true king, and these plans were only a rough outline. If anything went wrong, he trusted Quetzalcoatl's wisdom to handle it. You're leaving personally. Quetzalcoatl immediately understood. Roy intended to carry out these plans himself. Yes. I'll need to visit both the underworld and Roy nodded. These tasks are too dangerous for ordinary people. Only 3 individuals in are capable of undertaking them. If you go, it'll raise suspicions. If Taiga goes, her personality might cause problems. So, I'm the most suitable choice. But you're now the king of Roy chuckled. If I'm the king, then I must lead by example. The people of are fighting for their families and the world. Shouldn't their king do the same? Even if this title was thrust upon me by a capricious goddess, I'll fulfill my role. Completing these plans is the best gift I can give to warriors. Honestly. Quetzalcoatl smiled, her expression a mix of amusement and exasperation. You say you're not fit to be a king, but you're doing a fine job. Your decisiveness, sense of responsibility, and initiative are all qualities of a capable ruler. If this is your decision, I won't stop you. As goddess and your servant, I'll trust your judgment. She placed the clay tablet aside and looked at Roy seriously. Go ahead. The people of and I will support you. Thank you for understanding, Quetzalcoatl. No need to thank me. We're partners, after all. She added, I'll stay in and follow your plans to prevent any mishaps. But I have one condition. Go ahead. Roy nodded, waiting for her request. Take Taiga with you. She may be unreliable, but her strength is undeniable. Having her by your side will ease my worries. Roy considered this but shook his head. No. Is bustling with activity now. You'll be busy training and managing the city. Taiga knows the rainforest best. She'll be more useful here, assisting you. But. Quetzalcoatl hesitated, but Roy cut her off. Don't worry. I won't be traveling alone. He raised his hand, summoning a brilliant white light. Quetzalcoatl felt a familiar energy emanating from it. This is heroic spirit summoning. Chapter 176, 176 Chaldea Mash. Mash, where are you? Above the scorching highlands, a red-haired girl pressed forward, limping with every step, her body racked with searing pain. Though she had already traversed 6 singularities from different eras to reach this point, enduring trials of every imaginable kind, the sudden calamity unfolding before her far exceeded anything she could have anticipated. The moment they arrived via rash shifting, an abrupt repulsive force had hurled her and her companion, Mash, far apart, scattering them into the sky. Unlike the robust constitution of a servant, she was merely an ordinary human girl. Despite wearing a specially crafted mystic code imbued with the genius of the universal man, Leonardo da Vinci, it couldn't fully compensate for her fragile physique. Plummeting from dozens of meters in the air, she would have been incapacitated or worse. Had it not been for the mystic code's protection and the fortunate cushion of landing in the branches of a crooked tree. Even so, her left leg seemed fractured, her body marred with bruises and cuts. The excruciating pain threatened to pull her into unconsciousness. But the thought of her lost companion spurred her onward. Gritting her teeth, she clambered down from the tree. Mash. Are you nearby? Mash. On solid ground, she called out for Mash while fumbling with her mystic code, attempting to contact the team at Chaldea. Dr. Da Vinci-chan. Everyone at Chaldea, can you hear me? Buzz buzz buzz. The communication signal, however, was scrambled by some unknown interference. rendering Chaldea's equipment useless. At that moment, Ritsuka Fujimaru, the last master of humanity, found herself lost in the highlands of Mesopotamia, stranded in a dire, isolated crisis. With each staggering step she took, the scent of her blood wafted through this ancient, divine land. A scent that could attract unwanted attention. And now, they had come. Whoa. A sharp, whistling gust sliced through the air near her ear. Alarm bells rang in Ritsuka's mind as she instinctively threw herself to the side, tumbling awkwardly but narrowly evading a claw strike capable of rending the earth itself. Roar. Roarg. The danger was far from over. From the surrounding wilderness, countless crimson-furred demonic beasts emerged, drawn by the tang of her blood. Their scarlet eyes locked onto her, marking Ritsuka as their prey, ready to tear humanity's final master to shreds. Demonic beasts. Her face paled at the sight of the encroaching horde. Having survived 6 singularities, she was no stranger to such terrifying creatures. But in the past, Mash had always been by her side. The sheer number of beasts now dwarfed anything she'd encountered in prior singularities. And with Mash missing and her body in tatters, escape seemed impossible. Damn it, what do I do now? Surrounded by this legion of horrors, Ritsuka's complexion drained to a ghostly white. Fear gnawed at her, but she clenched her jaw, forcing herself to stand despite the agony. She couldn't afford to give up. Mash was out there, somewhere in this singularity, waiting for her. The team at Chaldea was counting on her return. The fate of humanity itself rested on her shoulders. After overcoming so many obstacles, how could she fall here? Ritsuka reached into her satchel, pulling out the Dispel Mystic Code Da Vinci had crafted for her. Her gaze hardened as she stared down the beasts, each one poised to lunge. Forcing her mind to steady, she scrambled for a plan. Mash was gone, no servants were at her side, and contact with the doctor and Chaldea had been severed. What could she do? The beasts sensed the ominous aura emanating from the mystic code in her hands. Those that had been poised to strike halted, fanning out to form a tighter encirclement around the red-haired girl. As seconds ticked by, more beasts joined the fray, drawn by the blood seeping from her wounds. Ritsuka's expression grew grimmer with every new arrival. The pain coursing through her body, the mental strain pressing down on her. Sweat beaded coldly on her forehead. She couldn't fathom a way to break free from this deadly ring. Even at its full potential, her mystic code might only fend off 1 or 2 beasts. But the horde before her numbered in the hundreds, if not thousands, with more still converging. Without Mash or a servant to protect her, how could she possibly escape? The disparity between her and her enemies was a chasm of despair. The original plan, meticulously laid out at Chaldea, had been simple: use Ra shifting to arrive directly within Ruck's borders, meet with this singularity's central figure, Gilgamesh, then regroup and strategize further. But the current chaos had shattered the doctor's blueprint entirely. Forget reaching Ruck. Surviving this ordeal was now a question mark. Had she and Mash not studied demonic beasts under Da Vinci's tutelage beforehand, arming themselves with specialized dispel mystic codes, she'd already have been torn apart. Roarg. The beasts, having observed the motionless girl at their center, grew restless. Sensing her weapon was little more than a bluff, they abandoned their cautious probing. No longer content to wear her down, they prepared to swarm, eager to rip Ritsuka apart and feast. Roar. Before the full assault could begin, a beast lurking in her blind spot lunged prematurely, leaping toward her with claws outstretched. What? Reacting to the sudden attack, Ritsuka pivoted, squeezing her eyes shut as she triggered the Dispel Mystic Code. A blinding flash erupted like a stun grenade, dazzling the beast mid-pounce. It let out a pained yelp, slamming its eyes shut as it barreled into her. Her frail human frame couldn't withstand the beast's full force. Gah! A cry escaped her lips as the beast's claws raked across her back, carving a deep gash. Blood poured onto the ground, and the mystic code slipped from her grasp, lost to the strike. Had Da Vinci's protective enchantments not shielded her, that blow would have torn her in two. But now the mystic code was gone. What could she do? No. I can't fall. Not after coming this far. Mash's still. Blood loss clouded Ritsuka's vision, her body weakening by the second. The encircling beasts tightened their noose, undeterred by the earlier flash, closing in once more. Beneath the terror of the pack, her resolute will teetered on the edge of collapse. Was this the end? After enduring such relentless torment, her body and spirit had reached their limits. With these wounds, unconsciousness loomed imminent. Roarg. Sensing their prey's resistance crumble, the ferocious beasts bared their fangs, abandoning all restraint. They surged forward, ready to shred Ritsuka and devour her whole. Ugh! In her battered state, her mind fogged and her strength spent, Ritsuka could only watch helplessly as the beasts descended. Just as their jaws neared her flesh. Bang! 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 From atop a nearby slope, A blond man in sunglasses leveled a peculiar firearm at the beasts, unloading a wild barrage. After a moment, he paused, realizing most of his shots had missed, and lowered his head in brief silence. "Looks like my aim could use some work," he muttered to himself. So this was humanity's last master? Far weaker than he'd imagined. Without a servant's protection, she couldn't even handle a skirmish like this. These were just stitched-together rabble. Beasts so lowly they'd be beneath a leopard's bait. No matter. Contract or not, saving her wasn't his burden to bear. His own master would outpace him anyway. With that in mind, the blond man reached behind him. In the next instant, he hefted a rocket launcher. Jarringly anachronistic for this era. Onto his shoulder. "Let's test the new toy." Grinning, he charged down the hill and pulled the trigger, aiming for the beastly throng below. Roarg. The beast's roars thundered in her ears. As their fangs neared her throat. Swish. A silver arc flashed through the air, followed by a spray of crimson blood. Several beasts mid-leap were cleaved into fragments by the fleeting gleam. Humphrey. Before the others could react, the silver light expanded, shredding hesitant stragglers into gore. "You alright, miss? Wandering alone into a beast-infested zone at this hour isn't exactly a wise habit." A warm embrace enveloped her, a gentle voice sounding in her ear. Ritsuka felt herself lifted into someone's arms. "Is it Mash?" No. This was a man's voice. She struggled to see his face, but Roy pressed a hand to her forehead, soothing her softly. "Don't move just yet. Let me heal you." As he spoke, Roy gazed at the frail girl in his arms with a pang of sympathy. Raising a hand, he began channeling magecraft to mend her wounds. A fractured leg, countless bruises, excessive blood loss. If he didn't act quickly, inflammation could endanger her life. Ritsuko Fujimaru. Kuriko, was it? The thought of a teenage girl bearing such a burden, conquering 7 singularities, only to face the demon god king, stirred pity in his heart. Roarg. The remaining beasts, enraged at their prey being snatched away, bared their fangs at Roy, converging with intent to make him their next meal. But before they could act, a blazing red sun crashed into their midst. The moment it struck, a torrid heatwave erupted, engulfing the nearest beasts and reducing them to charred husks in an instant. The creatures didn't even comprehend their fate before they were annihilated. "Sorry, Master. I'm late." A lean figure clad in golden armor emerged from the flames. The incarnation of the sun. He glanced at Roy, who'd arrived first, and bowed his head apologetically. As a servant, he should have been the one protecting his master. Yet he'd lagged behind. "No worries, Karna. You're not too late. I'll tend to Chaldea's master. Handle the beasts." Roy shook his head at Karna's arrival, adding, "Make it quick. Something troublesome is closing in." "Understood, Master." The hero of charity nodded at the command, turning his gaze to the oncoming beastly horde. These mass-produced vermin pose no real challenge to him. A flick of his finger could end them. But as his master warned, he too sensed the immense magical presence rapidly approaching from afar. Instinct screamed danger. Time for a swift resolution. With that, Karna glanced back at Roy, who was tending to Ritsuka within a sturdy magical barrier. Assured of his master's safety, he shed all restraint. Raising an arm, he prepared to unleash his true power. Thanks to Roy, Karna faced no mana limits. Endless magical energy coursed through him, letting him wield his skills without fear of depletion. With no civilians nearby to worry about, the desolate expanse was his battlefield. So, the son of the sun god leaped skyward, hoisting his golden lance aloft. Mana surged, melding flame and light in his grasp. "Brahma, curse my body. Brahmastra Kundala." Whoosh! A crimson flame spear took form in his hand. Gripping it tight, he hurled it downward from the heavens. Boom! The radiant lance pierced the earth, erupting in a blinding flare. The collision unleashed a roaring inferno, swallowing swathes of beasts in moments. The blast's ferocious winds and pressure pulverized the surrounding soil. In mere seconds, the encircling horde was reduced to cinders beneath the relentless blaze. Some beasts, trembling at the sunfire's might, turned tail in a frantic bid to flee. But Karna pursued, skewering them with his lance. Though the remnants posed no threat, his master's orders were absolute: eliminate every last one. Thus, Brahma, blanket the earth. Brahmastra. Too swift to evade, dozens of fleeing beasts were bisected by crimson beams from Karna's right eye, sundering the ground beneath them. The unleashed mana and heat sent a jolt through a green figure soaring from the horizon. Such power. Impossible. Chapter 177, 177 Smoking Mirror Boom. With Karna unleashing his full might, a terrifying blaze of light erupted across the vast plains of Mesopotamia. Hundreds of colossal, ferocious magical beasts were reduced to ashes in an instant under the unrelenting heat. They didn't even have time to scream. Having eradicated every beast in the vicinity, Karna descended from the sky, landing beside Roy. He raised his lance and stood in silence, awaiting his master's next command. Roy couldn't help but feel a twinge of exasperation at the sight of Karna's stern demeanor. He'd told him time and again to relax, that there was no need for such rigid adherence to the master-servant dynamic. They could simply be comrades who entrusted their backs to one another. To this, the ever-dutiful Karna merely inclined his head. But Roy's intent? Not a shred of it seemed to sink in. Karna remained steadfastly at Roy's side, obeying his master's orders without question or hesitation. Roy sighed, a mix of fondness and frustration tugging at him. Still, he nodded at the earnest little son before him and offered his thanks. "Good work, Karna." "It's no trouble, master," Karna replied evenly. "As a servant, protecting you and fulfilling your commands is my duty." Ever the model servant, Karna brushed off the praise. To him, arriving a step behind his master was already a failure. Wiping out the beasts had been a trifling act of atonement, nothing more. He believed a servant had no right to choose their master. Only to answer the call from the throne of heroes. This time, his master was a man of noble character, exceptional ability, and rare quality. To be summoned by such a person was his fortune, and he was determined to live up to that honor. "Master, do you have further orders?" Karna lowered his head slightly, his voice steady and grave. "Whatever you command, I'll carry it out, even at the cost of my life." "There's no need to stake your life for me, Karna," Roy countered gently. "Yes, we're bound by the contract of master and servant, but I'd rather see us as partners. You're not a tool. You're a hero with your own will and spirit." Karna's self-sacrificing words struck Roy as almost pathological, prompting him to correct the servant's mindset. "Summoning someone as noble and powerful as you is my luck. So why not take a page from that berserker's book? Think for yourself with that sharp mind of yours. What should you do, how should you act? You're a free hero, Karna. I won't chain you down." The mention of his other summoned servant, the erratic berserker, brought a faint headache to Roy's temples. Powerful, yes, but maddeningly unpredictable. That one had a deep-seated grudge against Quetzalcoatl. An enmity as incomprehensible as it was unshakable. When Roy had conducted the summoning ritual at the leyline nexus beneath everything had started smoothly enough. Drawing on the solar traits of Quetzalcoatl embedded in leyline, he'd successfully summoned his first servant of this singularity, Lancer Karna, son of the sun god Surya, the great hero of charity. One of the golden trio of top-tier servants, Karna was not only obedient but steady. Leagues above the other two troublemakers of the trio, Ozymandias and Gilgamesh. In comparison, Karna was an outright angel. His sole flaw was obvious, his techniques devoured mana at a staggering rate. But for Roy, a living holy grail thanks to the third magic, mana supply was never an issue. His reserves replenished faster than they could be spent, keeping him perpetually at peak capacity. Sustaining Quetzalcoatl, Artoria, Cuchulainn, and Taiga had been effortless. Adding Karna to the mix barely registered as a burden. With Karna's aid, Roy had anticipated smoothing over many of the troubles ahead. Summoning Karna had felt like a jackpot. A near-perfect start. But when he summoned his second servant, things spiraled out of control. The summoning circle had flared to life with a frenzied hum, draining mana at such a rate that even Roy, the boundless wellspring, felt a flicker of strain. Whoever was on the other end of that array eclipsed even Karna in sheer terror. The ritual was already underway, the requisite mana poured in. This wasn't some game where he could yank a plug to stop it. All he could do was wait for the summoned servant to emerge. You're my master, huh? Well, guess we're in this together now. Servant Berserker. True name? I'll keep that under wraps for now. Gotta maintain a little mystery, right? A tall, lean figure stepped forth. A blond man sporting sunglasses and modern attire. As he appeared, a faint mist coiled around the space, sending a visceral shiver of danger through Roy and Karna. Their instincts screamed, bodies tensing as if a predator had locked onto them. Before Roy could react, Karna instinctively stepped forward, shielding his master. His gaze bore into the smirking blonde servant. "Ha. I get it. My vibe's a bit much for the living. But relax, I'm the cerebral type. Love a good chat. Though don't get me wrong, I'm all about a fight too. No need to be so on edge, yeah? Let's keep this fun, master." The blonde servant shrugged off Karna's hostility, his eyes settling on Roy with a casual air. "As long as you don't pull anything that ticks me off, I won't go shopping for a new master." Shopping for a new master? What? Was he planning a coup? Karna's brow furrowed at the words, instantly branding the newcomer as a threat. "Master, this one's aura is trouble. Should I eliminate him?" "Eliminate me?" Ha ha ha. The blonde servant's eyebrow arched, a grin splitting his face as though he'd heard the punchline of the century. He clutched his face and threw his head back, laughter echoing wildly. A sun-scented guy, huh? If you think you can pull it off, give it a shot. I'll even let you live. Out of respect for this decent master, of course. His eyes narrowed, a faint mist rising from his frame. A lethal aura blanketed the room in an instant. I'm game. Karna replied coolly. Though he couldn't read the stranger, Karna wouldn't hesitate to fight for his master's safety. His lance leveled, solar flames licking its tip. He was ready to go all out. Enough. Roy's patience snapped as the two prepared to clash right then and there. He didn't know the blonde servant's true name, but if Karna treated him with such wariness, he was at least a top-tier servant on par with the Lancer. And both were drawing from Roy's infinite mana pool. If they brawled here in how much of the city would be left standing? He'd meant to bring a gift to not become its destroyer. Facing Quetzalcoatl and the city's people after that? He'd have no dignity left as a makeshift king. Oh? Master's playing peacemaker, huh? Fair enough. I'm all for a scrap, but fighting my own team? Nah, too much hassle for too little payoff. Master. This guy's clearly not. Karna began to protest, but Roy shook his head, cutting him off. I know, Karna. I can sense how dangerous Berserker is. But since I summoned him, and he answered my call just like you did, there's a compatibility between us. I believe we'll came to understand each other in time. Understand each other? Karna's gaze wavered with doubt, while the blonde servant erupted into another round of unrestrained laughter. So that's how it is. Ha ha ha. You're right, Master. I don't hate that personality of yours one bit. As a partner going forward, you're more than qualified. Let's make this work, then. I won't freeload off your mana. I'll pull my weight. Life's short, so I'll just bide my time till you kick the bucket. Is that supposed to be a curse or something? Nope. Call it a blessing. My special brand of it, anyway. As he spoke, the blonde servant's expression shifted, his brow creasing as though he'd caught wind of something unpleasant. That stench. Ugh. Some annoying pest is closing in. Seriously, running into my old nemesis here of all places? Sorry, Master, gotta step out to say hi to an old pal. We'll hash out the partnership later. With that, mist swirled around him once more, enveloping his form until he vanished entirely. Karna tensed, edging closer to Roy, wary of a sneak attack. But the truth was, sensing Quetzalcoatl's presence, the blonde servant lost his cool. The scene spiraled into chaos. Far off at the Sun Temple, where Quetzalcoatl had been training troops, she too picked up on his aura. And her composure shattered. Drawn by each other's revolting signatures, the two streaked from opposite ends of gliding in the surrounding rainforest with unrestrained fury. And they weren't holding back. Both were Roy's servants, tethered to him by contract, granting them limitless mana. Yet even with her divine domain's terrifying boost, Quetzalcoatl couldn't subdue the blonde berserker. A stunning twist. This man could hold his own against a divine spirit. In mere moments, the rainforest lay in ruins. Trees toppled, dual-colored mana blasts tearing through, vaporizing half the beasts lurking at the forest's edge. The fight escalated, the destruction mounting in seconds. If they kept going, wouldn't survive. Roy immediately sent Karna skyward to intervene. The result? Karna barely lasted minutes before a punch from one and a kick from the other sent him flying. His golden armor spared him serious injury, but stepping into that fray was beyond him. If it were just the two of them duking it out, fine. But a third party stepping in drew their combined wrath. An onslaught even Karna's solar armor couldn't weather. Roy watched the divine showdown from below, jaw slack with disbelief. The nameless blonde servant was one thing, but Quetzalcoatl he knew well. Quetzalcoatl was the pinnacle of benevolence, the gentlest of gods. Only one figure across Mayan and Aztec myth could rile her to this degree. The mightiest deity of the Aztec world who reigns over heaven and earth. A god of war and sorcery, beauty and discord, night and dominion, storms and plagues, crime and order, fortune and misfortune. Embodying the opposing dualities of reason and the vibrant chaos born of their clash. The incarnation of the black sun, reflecting all things. Tezcatlipoca. In that moment, Roy realized he'd summoned Quetzalcoatl's arch-rival. These two pinnacle gods of myth, eternal foes incapable of reconciliation, now stood in the same camp. By his hand. But by a divine spirit. Was it like with Taiga Fujimura? Had tapping ley line, steeped in Quetzalcoatl's essence, skewed the summoning to call forth this apex of malevolence? If Karna was the ace drawn from Quetzalcoatl's solar nature, Tezcatlipoca was the darkened version of her benevolence. Roy couldn't help but marvel at the twisted whims of fate. So intertwined with fortune and calamity. Command spells held little sway over servants of this caliber. Even expending all three might not halt their rampage. But this wasn't the time for pondering. If they kept fighting, or would be ash. Even Karna couldn't stop them. So what now? After a moment's thought, Roy made his call, ordering Karna to fall back and protect her citizens alongside Jaguar Man. He'd handle these two reckless titans himself. Master. How could you? Karna balked at the absurd command. These divine spirits could overwhelm even him. His master facing them alone? Impossible. He obeyed orders unconditionally, but he wasn't brainless. Hearing Roy propose something so reckless stirred genuine concern. No time to explain, Karna. Go protect the people. Trust me. I'll be fine. But. No buts. I'm counting on you. With no room for further debate, white mana flared around Roy as he launched skyward toward Quetzalcoatl Tezcatlipoca. Behind him, Karna yearned to follow and shield his master. But glancing at the panicked citizens below, he relented, honoring the command. Stay safe, master. He murmured, then raised an arm, mana surging at his chest. As power swelled, the golden armor bestowed by Surya blazed with blinding light. O Sunwheel, become my armor. Kavacha and Kundla. As Karna soared upward, unfurling his armor to deflect the battle's fallout. Roy reached the sky, his ice-blue mystic eyes snapping open. Channeling immense mana to counter their shockwaves, he formed seals with his hands before his chest. Heaven him. A strange mana pulsed, and the world seemed to freeze. Color drained from the surroundings as white light rose behind Roy, spilling like paint across a black canvas, enveloping the clashing duo. Huh? This weird mana vibe. Master? You. Busting out a reality marble? Mid-battle, the two sensed the familiar mana signature. They turned in unison toward Roy at the battlefield's edge, watching as the white light surged to engulf them. Since it was their master's reality marble, neither dodged. They stood still, letting the radiance swallow them whole. Chapter 178, 178 Romania's strange warmth began to seep into her limbs. The spark of life, teetering on the edge of extinction, stirred under the gentle guidance of an unseen force. Ritsuko Fujimaru, still lost in the haze of unconsciousness, twitched faintly in Roy's arms. Her brow furrowed as the wounds riddling her body knitted together beneath the soft green glow emanating from his hands. Roy sustained the healing magecraft for a time, watching as the worst of Ritsuka's injuries faded. Only when he was certain she was out of mortal danger did he allow himself a small breath of relief. With the third magic, he could have erased her wounds in an instant. But tampering with another soul through magecraft was a line he refused to cross lightly. He reserved that power for himself, wielding it on others only in the direst of straits. The healing spells he used now were slower, less potent than the third magic, but with a generous dose, they sufficed to mend Ritsuka's battered form. A mere fatal wound, after all. That should do it. The faint green light dimmed and vanished from his palm. Roy reached behind him, retrieving a black water flask. He tilted it carefully to Ritsuka's lips. Gulp, gulp. Water trickled down her cheeks, spilling into her parched mouth. The precious moisture soothed her dry throat, a rare coolness cutting through the haze. Stirred by instinct, the barely conscious girl clutched the hand feeding her and drank greedily. Cough, cough, cough. In her muddled state, she gulped too fast, choking on the stream. Her body convulsed with coughs, but the fit sharpened her senses, dragging her mind into clarity. Ritsuka's bleary eyes fluttered open, meeting the face of a young man gazing down at her. Awake at last, miss? Roy offered a warm smile, his voice soft as he greeted her. Looks like you're pulling through nicely. Huh? Startled by the unfamiliar youth, Ritsuka registered her position. Cradled against him, her hand gripping his. She'd been resting in his arms. What was going on? Confusion rippled through her mind. Waking up in a stranger's embrace in the midst of a perilous singularity. Nothing about this felt right. This wasn't some saccharine romance novel. She vaguely recalled being swarmed by magical beasts before blacking out, but... Struggling upright, Ritsuka scanned her surroundings. Where were the beasts? No matter how hard she looked, all she saw was cracked, scorched earth. Karna's handiwork. And countless blackened chunks of charred flesh. The air reeked of roasted meat, sharp and acrid. In this desolate wasteland, she seemed to be held by this young man alone. The scene was anything but romantic. It was downright eerie. Who are you? She ventured, her voice tentative. Just a wanderer doubling as a magus, nothing more. Roy replied with a dip of his head, gently setting the shaken girl down from his arms. I'm glad to see you're all right. Ease to the ground, Ritsuko hesitated, her nerves still taut. Did you save me? If you mean healing your wounds, yes, that was me. As for the beasts, my servant took care of them. Roy flicked a finger skyward, pointing out Karna, who patrolled the heavens with unwavering focus. Ritsuka, stunned by the revelation, missed the gesture's full implication. Servant? The word jolted her. If he commanded a servant, then this young man was. Her gaze dropped to his hand, settling on the back where 3 command spells, similar in hue to hers, though distinct in design, glowed faintly. So you're also. Hey. Ritsuka, is that you? Can you hear me? At that moment, Chaldea's notoriously fickle comms device crackled to life. Romani Archimon's voice burst through from the other side. Hearing the doctor's familiar tone, Ritsuka abandoned her exchange with Roy, ducking her head to reconnect with her team. I hear you. Thank goodness. I finally reached you, Doctor. Thank goodness, it worked. Sorry, Ritsuka. We lost you because of a special barrier's interference in that singularity. It damaged the comms, but Ritsuka, where's Mash? Why isn't her vital signature near you? And there are 2 massive mana signatures with you now. One's a servant. Based on Saint Graph records, it's Karna from the 5th singularity. The other, though, back in Chaldea's command room, Romani Archimon. Finally reconnected. Launched into a rapid assessment of Ritsuka's condition and surroundings. Half an hour ago, her vitals on Chaldea's monitors had plummeted to critical levels. With comms down, he'd been blind to her plight, nearly driven mad with worry. Now, reunited with her voice, Roman's questions poured out in a frantic rush, his usual composure fraying. Bombarded by his relentless queries, Ritsuka faltered, unsure where to begin. It took the intervention of Leonardo da Vinci, ever present at Roman's side, to restore order. Step aside, Roman. You won't get answers like this. Let me handle Ritsuka. With that, da Vinci nudged the flustered doctor away, taking over the comms.